by a majority of the members present, I declare the motion passed. Members' motion with no legislative effect. Mr. Kissen Yang's motion on reviewing the development strategy of public markets. Mr. Michael TIEN will move an amendment to the motion. This council will proceed to a joint debate on the motion and the amendments. Later, I will first call upon Mr. Kissen Yang to speak and move the motion. Then I will call upon Mr. Michael TIEN to speak in sequence, but he may not move the amendment at this stage. The joint debate now begins. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. I now call upon Mr. Kissen Yang to speak and move the motion. Thank you, President. I move that the motion as printed on the agenda be passed. Now, the locations for buying fresh provisions has been changing from the streets to the public markets, from offline to online, and from the south to the north. It has weakened the functions of our public markets. The environment is poor and there is a succession gap. Now, the competitiveness of public markets has been weakened. Many people are buying their groceries outside public markets. At the evening, everything would be sold at a very cheap price. Now, those living in the north would go to the mainland across the border to buy the groceries. Young people would not go to public markets and they can find everything they want online. The vacancy rate has been increasing exponentially. In 2023, it was 7.1%. This year, it is 13.32%. The situation is worrying. I hope the government would add vibrancy to our public markets, enhance the management, and update the operational model, and make them more competitive. We need to give a facelift to our public markets. Now, the market modernization program, the idea is to enhance the hardware and introduce more diverse trade mix. It will offer a comfortable shopping environment for shoppers. However, with $250 million spent on the Hong Kong and the Aberdeen markets, there is a 40% vacancy rate. Same for the Lai Wan market. Footfall is low. Now, why is it so that modernized markets are less popular than before? Now, because the shoppers have moved to other places to buy groceries. Air conditioning fee and management fee is costly. The products are expensive. That's why many shoppers have switched to other shops. Now, the public markets were not given a new positioning. It is an era where people prioritize CP value. Now, public markets have been outcompeted by supermarkets and e-merchants. Now, besides enhancing the hardware, we need to improve the contents of the public markets as well. We are moving towards tourism. Now, the Yamate fruit market is famous. Now, the Jujuki market in Tokyo is a famous tourism attraction. Many markets are also tourist attraction. For example, in Budapest, the central public market sells everything from spices to wine. There are also supermarkets and bazaar. The products it sells is cheap. That's why this is a famous check-in spot as well as a favorite spot for locals. Now, for example, the Borough Market in London, there are lots of gourmet from all over the world. Everything is so cheap. Now, there is always a long queue in front of the shops. Now, in Finland, there is also the Helsinki agricultural market. There is a famous soup restaurant in the market. If you go to Helsinki, this is a must-see spot. So can we attract famous businesses to upgrade the branding of public markets? Now, in Europe, there are many places inside public markets where you can enjoy the food on site. For example, farmers selling mushrooms will sell cooked mushroom, and seafood merchants will sell raw oysters. Now, after shopping for seafood and meat products, With a small additional fee, you can enjoy the food on site. Now, this is what's happening in the mainland. Many Hong Kongers are going to the Yantian public market. By using a QR code, you can order fresh provisions and have them cooked into gourmet. In fact, many traditional grocery shops in the European markets have transformed themselves and made themselves tourist attraction. For example, the market in Barcelona and also another market in Stockholm in Sweden. Now, the public markets combine the functions including selling fresh provisions, festive activities, workshops, and the marketing channels are diverse. They make use of social media platforms to sell the products. They regularly announce their activities on social media platforms. New products are being sold. Now, the transformation in the mainland markets have followed this direction. There are many mainland cities with markets like those you can find in Rotterdam. For example, the Dongshan vegetable and meat market and also the Shangta market in Suzhou. These are also markets with a cultural positioning. Now, the Wudong market in Shanghai is endorsed by a French fashion brand. The French design company has designed the theme of the market. Now, there are three characteristics. Young people are attracted to the market. There's also food and beverage establishments. Three, there's cultural element. Now, if we can learn from the Daxing market for its price, and if we can have food with the highest quality, we can revive the public market. Now, we need to keep the operational model of public market up to date. Now, the government should encourage young people to establish a business in the public market. Value-added services should be introduced. We should encourage store tenants to advertise their products on social media platforms and make use of influencers. There should be collaboration with trendy products. And we should make public markets a famous check-in spots for youth. Now, the Laiwan market and Aberdeen market, which have been modernized, should be the pilot site. If the idea is successful, it should be expanded to other markets. Now, for public markets with a high vacancy rate, we need to enhance the social function of the market. Now, some organizations have worked with the FEHD to organize a pop-up market in the Chunyip Street public market. Now, can we extend this experiment to other public markets with high vacancy rate? NGOs should be invited to organize music concerts and also cooking bazaars in the public markets. Now, I've been urging the FEHD to learn from the housing authority to lease vacant stores to young people or transform them into holiday and weekend markets. Let the young people sell homemade food and crafts. This will attract more visitors to bring about economic activities. Now, it takes 10 years or so to replan or reposition a market. Now, rather than letting them idle, just let NGOs and young and youth groups turn them into cultural sports. Now, there is a trend of public market tourism in the mainland. Many young people are attracted to public markets because of the local flavor. Now, we need to use public markets as a base for promoting our tourism resources. Local flavors and local experience are the new direction to follow. Now, with the change in the consumption pattern, there is less demand for the traditional functions of public markets. The government needs to conduct a rethink on whether it is worth spending $1 billion to build a public market. We need to consider whether the old standards in the HKPSG should still be followed. We need smaller public markets with lower cost. Now, the bottom line is we have to spend public money wisely. Thank you.
I now propose the question to you that Mr. Kitson Young's motion be passed. Mr. Michael TIEN. Deputy President, firstly, I want to thank Mr. Kitson Young for this motion. Currently, the FEHD is managing 96 public markets. Whether a market is value for money, I think what matters is we have to ensure that business operators do not lack. Some markets see very low business turnovers and low patronage. In order to boost patronage, we have to opt for electronic payment or electronization. Electronization of market, well, has been the advocate of Roundtable. We don't want to pass around wet banknotes. This is in line with our goal to develop a smart city. Newly completed markets now ask business operators to opt for at least one e-payment method, like the market in Tongchong. People can opt for e-payment. For new markets, well, the tenancy agreements do not stipulate what kind of e-payment methods should be used, so very few business operators install Octopus card payment devices. That's why I asked FEHD to require business operators to provide at least 2 e-payment methods that include physical card payment as well as mobile e-wallets. Last year, the FEHD took on board my views, and newly completed markets, including those in Tin Shui Wai, Tseung Kwan O, and Kutong North, there will be such e-payment methods offered. I suggested the government to roll out subsidy schemes as well. According to the latest statistics, as at 2024, there are 11,000 stalls let out by the FEHD. Only 20% offer e-payment methods. Only 9% of them have the Octopus card devices installed. And one of the major reasons is that the new e-payment policy only applies to newly completed market or refurbished market, and the old markets do not offer e-payment methods. I said that there should be at least 2 e-payment or contactless payment methods offered by all public markets. Well, some may say that we should not ask business operators in the old markets to follow suit. So I think that this should become a condition of lease or lease renewal, be they old tenants or new tenants. Like those in the new markets, they should comply with the conditions. This is a way to go electronic. We should not stay in the past. Now let's talk about the operating model. The E.ON market, commissioned in 1999, 65 stalls, only 28 were let out because of various reasons. And I suggested the FEHD to close the entire market. Apart from this market, we see a high vacancy rate in old markets. I remember that in 2018, I talked to the then FEHD director, and back then I said that the operating model is wrong. Tenants not only look at the rent, but they also look at the business opportunities. Even with good businesses, I may not be let a store, a shopping mall without businesses. There is no way out. So we should not opt for the highest bidder win model. The point is to prevent business operators from slacking. So I hope the FEHD can change the entire operating model. When they decide to renew the lease, they should look at the business turnover. This could be done through surveys. Link REIT follows this model. They only pick the operators with the best business, and we should not opt for the highest bidder win approach, and the rent should be 90% of the open market rental. This can and help enhance competitiveness of tenants. That means the rent should not be the greatest consideration. We should look at the level of footfall. Last year, the administration said it would adopt an open mind. I want to know the progress of the administration in this regard. Lastly, I hope members would support my amendment. I so submit.
Secretary for Environment and Ecology. Madam Deputy, I thank Mr. Kitson Young for moving the motion and Mr. Michael TIEN for his amendment so the Council can have a discussion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. We fully understand the concern of all quarters of society on the development direction of public markets. Currently, there are 96 public markets, including cooked food markets under the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department (FEHD). Over 60% of the markets were commissioned before the 1990s, which means most of them have been in use for over 30 years. The decor and facilities are dated. The public expect the operation of stores can be more aggressive. In addition, there is a change in consumption pattern in recent years. All these pose challenges to the operation of public markets. The FEHD has put in place a number of measures striving to enhance the management and hardware of public markets in the hope of elevating its operating environment and competitiveness. Enhancement of hardware. In this regard, in order to improve the operating environment of existing public markets for tenants, business operation, and for providing patrons with a better shopping environment, the government has implemented the Market Modernization Program since 2018. It includes overhaul or redevelopment, store enhancement, as well as minor refurbishment or improvement works. Overhaul or redevelopment projects generally involve reconfiguring the overall layout, upgrading of building services, installations, and other improvement works. The Aberdeen Market and Lai Wan Market officially reopened in May 2023 and March 2024 respectively after the overhaul. The two markets have been operating smoothly since. The patronage has risen by over 10% from that before the works. Store enhancement projects are done based on actual needs and circumstances. They are repair and beautification works as well as replacement and repair of simple equipment to improve the environment. The first project, the Queen Street Cooked Food Market, resumed full operation in September 2024. The daily average footfall has increased by about 26%, by 10%. Given the success of Queen Market, Cooked Food Market, and the positive response from tenants and the public, the FEHD will identify other suitable venues for store enhancement works. On minor refurbishment or improvement works, they have been undertaken in 16 markets. 15 have been completed. The remaining Nam Long Shan Road Cooked Food Market is expected to be completed in 2025. Building new public markets. The FEHD is implementing new projects. Works on new markets in Tin Shui Wai will complete in 2027, and those in Cheung Kwan O Area 67 and Kutong New Development Area are expected to be completed in 2028. Building a new public market involves significant public resources. When considering these projects, the government take into account factors such as the size and profile of the population they serve, public and private market facilities in the area, the number of fresh provision outlets, existing or planned use and transport facilities nearby. Consolidating and closing public markets. With demographic changes, new development, redevelopment projects, and competition from other fresh provision outlets, the appeal of long-standing public markets is diminishing. The patronage and occupancy rate are low. The government endeavors to make optimum use of precious land resources to maximize social benefits. The FEHD has been closely monitoring the utilization of existing markets and considering closing or consolidating underutilized ones. Since 2018, the department has closed a total of 7 public markets with a persistently high vacancy rate and has released the site to department or bureaus for other suitable uses. Say, for example, transitional housing operated by NGOs, elderly services, etc., in accordance with established procedures. The department will continue to make preparations and conduct consultations. This includes the closure of the Main Street Market and the Yeon Street Market to plan for healthcare-related facilities. Public market management. In terms of management, the FEHD adopts a new management model in new markets and overhauled or redeveloped ones under the Market Modernization Program to improve management and service. Under the new model, contractors engaged by the FEHD are in charge of daily management, cleaning, security, and minor repair. They're also tasked to formulate promotion and development strategies, carry out publicity, for example, organizing festive and thematic events, production and distribution of publicity materials, creating dedicated sites on social media, and promoting shopping deals offered by stores. They also need to liaise with stakeholders and provide input on trade mix in the market. The FEHD has implemented improvement measures in relation to tenancy management. These include the one-person, one-store tenancy arrangement to give more people a chance to lease a store to promote healthy competition. Sitting tenants do not have the right for auto-renewal of tenancy. The FEHD has also put in place the demerit points system to strengthen enforcement and management on breaches. The performance of tenants during the tenancy will be taken into account to foster natural turnover and encourage good practices during renewal. Increasing occupancy rate. To increase the occupancy rate and put long-standing vacant stores to better use, the FEHD has implemented various measures. A pass arrangement was restored in May 2024, such that long-standing vacant stores will be put up for open auction at reduced upset prices. Under this arrangement, stores that have been vacant for over 6 months will start with the upset price at 80% of the open market rent, whereas the ones with a vacant period of over 8 months will start at 60%. Between May and 31st of December 2024, 60 stores have been let under this arrangement. This is a testament that the arrangement helps to increase occupancy. In addition, from October to December 2024, the FEHD has run a pilot scheme under which market stores not taken at open auctions will be made available to the public for renting at their upset prices on a first-come, first-served basis. 40 stores have been rented as a result. From April 2025, the FEHD regularly let out stores on a first-come, first-served basis. In addition, vacant stores in the overhauled Aberdeen market. The FEHD has put in different trades and commodities such as ready-to-eat food, mobile phones, electronic parts, pet foods and food, hardware and haircut, nails, beauty and Chinese medicine services for enhanced diversification. Moreover, having regard to requests from operators for relaxation of the restrictions on store size and height, the FEHD has amalgamated adjoining stores after the tenancy has terminated into larger ones to give operators more choices. As indicated in past discussions between the government and the relevant panel and its subcommittees of the LegCo, the community in general consider that public markets have their social functions. They are one of the main ways for the public to shop for fresh provisions. They should be kept clean and tidy without being unduly upmarket. On the other hand, as stated in the motion, with more shopping channels for the same products and a change in consumption pattern, the demand for public markets has dropped. The original intention of the government in building public markets is to meet the basic needs for fresh produce of the public. In reviewing the future development of the markets, we will prioritize the welfare of the public and keep an open mind when considering the different views. I look forward to hearing the valuable views from members so that we can work together to map out the future development of public markets. I so submit. Thank you.
Ms. Eunice Yung. Deputy President, I speak in support of the motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. I also support the amendment made by Mr. Michael TIEN. Peoples are facing a different habit in buying fresh provision, and public markets are facing huge competition. Online platforms have become the mainstream platforms, and the business environment and the operating environment of public markets face huge competition and challenges. The New People's Party in the middle of last year did a survey on patronage of public markets. 47% of the respondents said there is a higher vacancy rate in terms of the stalls in the public market. Some 60% of the respondents said a drop of rental could help improve the situation. The political party and I are concerned how we should continue to manage our public markets so that we can truly revitalize them. The administration has stressed time and again that it has launched the market modernization program. We do see improvement in the public markets in Shatin and Taiwan. In the past, we were concerned about the air conditioning problems. We have seen improvement, but there is still room for further improvement. For example, can there be glass doors? Can there be gates or doors so that the air conditioning will not be leaked? Some vegetable stalls said that there is air conditioning, but the stalls near the entrance feels very hot. We asked the administration to help, and the RHSD has been thinking of ways to improve the operating environment and to help stall operators cope with the challenges. The Shouchun-O market, well, I am more concerned about the situation in New Territories East because I was a legislator there. Most people, they go to Shakok market because it is managed by Link REIT. People prefer the business model. Private markets or private companies like Quinoa and Link, they ask operators to offer e-payment methods, and that's mandatory. However, even with the modernization program, public market tenants see a low patronage. How can we draw footfall to the public markets? Well, we think the government should have more commercial considerations. We do not just want to revitalize the outer appearance of the public markets. We want to boost patronage so that we can revive the economy of public markets. Without footfall, there will not be any business operators there, and this is a key livelihood issue. We visited some public markets with Rosanna Law, and we went to Bok Hong Market. We looked at Shakok and Bok Hong Market. And Shakok market is really strong, and so Bok Hong Market does not see good business. Well, some say the vacancy rate is not that high because there is a 70 to 80% occupancy rate. Well, you see, there are small shops and eateries near some stalls, and they see good businesses, but for some fish stalls and vegetable stalls, they are very empty. I don't know if you look at just the eateries when you take into account the occupancy rate, but it doesn't reflect the true situation. We should consolidate the leading public markets. We should roll out markets with characteristics so that the entire neighborhood can benefit. Shouchun-O markets is up in the hill, and Shakok market is downhill. People would not go up the mountain to get groceries. This is because all the transportation means are down there. So if there is a leading market in the neighborhood, well, I hope the government can think about how to draw footfall and revive the economy. We should ensure good business for store operators to boost patronage. Then we can revitalize the brand of public markets. We want a good business environment. Thank you. Ms. Rebecca Chen. Thank you, Deputy President. From the perspective of modernizing community, we should not only look at hardware, but we should also look at whether there are diversified stalls in public markets. We should look at the location of the public markets and whether the prices are affordable. This is the crucial to the success of markets. There are 96 public markets managed by the FEHD, and the cost of managing is about $1.1 billion. Take Hong Shou Market and Quarry Bay Market, the vacancy rate is 55% and 51% respectively. How to manage public markets have been discussed in this council for years. In the past, the public markets were criticized to be old and dilapidated. The vacancy rate was high, and therefore in 2018, the government launched the Market Modernization Program, setting aside $2 billion for the program. This is a good program, but we see a change in people's consumption pattern. And because of various reasons, the two projects under the program are not going well. Take Aberdeen Market as an example. It's been overhauled and it looks great from the outside, but the vacancy rate is as high as 17%. Last year, among the 137 stalls, 41 stalls saw a termination of tenancy. The termination rate is as high as 30%. Take Lai Wan Market as an example. Last year, the termination rate was 33%. So 1/3 of the tenants terminated the tenancy agreements. There are various reasons behind that. One major reason was that they did not manage to break even. One stall operator from the Aberdeen Market said the rent went up from $3,000 to over $10,000 or even $20,000 after the overhaul. I hope that the government will not use the highest bidder win. Instead, it should implement a 70 to 80% of the open market rental so that the rent would not be too high. A stall operator may participate in balloting to be allocated a stall. If the goods are expensive, no one would patronize the stalls, and with low patronage, business operators would not be able to tide over the crisis. The rental arrangement is also a key factor. Take Lai Wan Market as an example. There are only 30 stalls being let out now. During the overhaul, people could not go to the market. So they have already developed the habit of going to another district to get groceries. There are not enough choices in the overhauled market and the prices are expensive. That's why local residents are not going to the Lai Wan Market anymore. The FEHD is facing a hard time. It is a supervisor, sort of, and at the same time it has to oversee the marketing of public markets. Currently, the marketing strategy is under the purview of the FEHD. I think the administration should adjust its strategy. It should have another department take care of the development strategy. For example, it should think about what kind of goods should be introduced in the public markets, what kind of stalls are seeing bad businesses, and what kind of marketing activities should be held, and how can it adjust the rental etc., to boost patronage. Also, we should think about the positioning of the public markets. We should go further and do more. The key to success is the patronage level. In the past, we had a building with cooked food stalls and sports ground and so on. Can we have some floors of the municipal building with community services? Could there be community living rooms, as well as community gardens, as well as childcare centers, so that people, when they visit the building, they can get groceries and enjoy all these services at the same time. To truly modernize public markets, we cannot only refurbish them. The government should take into consideration the vacancy rate as well as the termination rate to review the positioning as well as the development strategy for public markets. I hope that the government will truly take into consideration the perspectives of local residents as well as stall operators, and this will truly benefit us. Thank you.
Mr. Gary Chen. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Kitson-Yang for moving today's motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. To develop public markets, we need to revisit or review the roles and positioning of public markets. When I was a kid and when the President was a youth, public markets were very important for a family. Housewives would go to public markets to buy fresh provisions for dinner. But it is not the case now. Very few people shop at public markets. Now, with smaller family sizes, it doesn't justify a daily visit to public markets. People dine out more compared with the past. Even if I am staying home for dinner, I would just buy a 2-dish dinner from downstairs. So why bother going to the public market and then cook the food myself? So lifestyle has changed. People's consumption pattern has changed as well. In the past, you need to buy fresh provisions like eggs, fish, and meat in public markets. Nowadays, there is the famous chain store Tian Ma for buying beef and pork. So it doesn't justify a visit to public markets. There are alternatives like supermarkets or even online shopping. The attractiveness of public markets to the public has weakened a lot. So to keep public markets running, we need to rethink its positioning. So I would like to share 3 examples with the Undersecretary here. The new public market building in Taipo, that is a great public market with fish and meat stores, household items, and a cooked food market. During weekend, footfall is high. It's in my neighborhood, Taipo. But there is also the Po Wu Road public market, also in Taipo. It is basically empty. Now the FEHD has changed it to a flower market. The stores sell items for planting. Now another example is the Fuxin Street Market in Taipo. It is a famous tourist attraction. It is not run by the FEHD, so it is not a typical public market. The setting is a traditional one. There are 2 aisles and there are canopies with wet floor. But that's attractive to tourists from the mainland. It is a check-in spot and it is also favored by the locals because of the wide variety of choices. Now there are 2 public markets in the same neighborhood. One is popular, one is not. The other one, which is not operated by the FEHD, is a tourist spot. So it is worth considering the 3 examples. Now in terms of regulation, can we relax the regulations on the items that can be sold. Now, if you specify the few items that the stores can sell, it is very rigid. So why don't you relax it and let the businesses make their own choices? It will grow patronage and it will make the products more diversified. Now, I quoted the 3 examples above. Hoping that the government would conduct a rethink on our public market management policy. Please stop speaking. Mr. Jesse Shang. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. TIEN for moving the original motion. Now, in recent years, channels and locations for buying fresh provisions have changed. In the past, it was public markets. Now it has changed to supermarkets, dedicated stores, or even online shopping platforms, and also overseas chain stores. Now it shows that there are challenges and opportunities for public markets. Public markets need to break away from the rigid roles and transform into public spaces serving social and other essential functions. Now we talk about the present situation, the direction to go, and also my own suggestions. First of all, inheritance. Now, among the 96 public markets, they are all built according to the size of local population. There are different trade mixes. There are stringent requirements, and businesses need to submit a tender. Now, in terms of ventilation, environmental hygiene, and convenience, there is improvement. However, the patronage has not improved. There are more and more competition, and public markets are become more quiet. But there are more and more competition, and there's also suppliers selling high-end food materials and also more choices from overseas. Now, supermarkets offer products with standardized and pretty packaging with air conditioning and a comfortable shopping environment. They are posing a huge challenge to public markets. More than 60% of public markets have been built 30 years ago. Now, the freezing facilities are lacking, and also there is some public markets do not have air conditioning. Elderly shoppers are deterred in summer times, and also it is not very convenient. Now, the environment of the public markets is poor. Now, because of the municipal regulations, it is strangling the development of public markets. Now, with urban development, some public markets are located in remote locations, and residents in new development areas can't find a public market nearby. It poses a systematic or structural problem to market strategy. Now, it is a competition between public and private markets. In many overseas countries, they allow public markets to continue to operate in the urban center and serve as tourist attraction. Now, public markets should offer diversified functions. Now, my suggestion is we need to introduce expertise to revitalize the markets. Now, we need to reform the markets and invite, through public tender, operating teams with expertise to design the brand and maintain the hardware. Second, we need to apply technology and make our market smart. We should upgrade the e-payment or electronic payment system of all our markets and provide assistance to encourage store tenants to accept e-payments. This will offer a cleaner and more convenient payment choice for shoppers. Now, I urge the government to integrate smart functions in the I'm Smart mobile app, offering information of the public markets across the territory, and offer online payments and online shopping functions through I'm Smart, and also enable delivery services. This will enhance the competitiveness of our public market and also create a more modernized shopping experience for the public. President, the future of public markets doesn't just hinge on convenience. People's tastes have changed and they are eyeing for products of better quality. Now we need to provide a basic supplies to grassroots shoppers as well as high-end foodstuff for those with aspirations. As so submit, I support the original motion. Mr. Lam Chen Singh. Thank you, President. Now, last year, the Finance Committee approved funding to build the public markets for the Kutong North NDA. Now, the PWSC and also the panel and the FC have discussed the matter for 5 hours. Now, some may wonder why it took such a long time for the electrical to debate on this subject. Now, it is only one station away from Shenzhen. Now, with the trend of shopping across the border, the government must do better. Now, refreshments and takeaway food are sold in the Kutong North market. Maybe we should upgrade the Kutong North market to a cooked food center. Now, many families are driving to that market to shop. We need to offer sufficient parking spaces. Now, the market costs $800 million. We hope that it will justify the cost. Now, people have some basic requirements for even fresh provisions. Now, sometimes markets run by private companies are too expensive, so they would choose to shop at markets operated by the FEHD. Now, the Pak-Tin Village market in New Territories is an example. Since its refurbishment in 2021, rents and prices have increased. Shoppers have moved to Pak Ho Street markets to shop. Then the vacancy rate in Pak-Tin market has rocketed. Now, there is also a management issue. An escalator in the market was closed for half a year without being repaired. Shoppers need to take the stairs. It deters elderly shoppers from the public market and also hurts the businesses there. Now, the Aberdeen market is a pilot program under the Market Modernization Scheme. Now, sadly, the vacancy rate is at 26%, much higher than before. Now, despite the addition of air conditioning and public resting space, the rent level of the public market has doubled compared with before. Now, to keep the business running, store tenants had to sell more expensive products like seafood. It led to the lack of diversity in the market. And also there is more stringent requirements or regulation on storage areas and so on. Now, half a year after reopening, 20% of store tenants quit the market. Now, the MMP shouldn't make the ecosystem of public markets homogeneous. We need to establish markets with characteristics, for example, night market or seafood market. Must it be so that the public market or markets to be driven by market force? We need to bring in youth entrepreneurs and encourage startups. Now, the government should be more flexible in terms of the tenant policy, and there should be more facilitation. For example, the government should consider giving concessions to the air conditioning fee borne by store tenants after modernization. Otherwise, the additional cost would be shifted to shoppers. Otherwise, no matter how much the government is spending to revitalize public markets, store tenants cannot survive, and shoppers will end up having fewer choices. Now, I hope the FEHD would remove these restrictions. I so submit to support the motion.
Mr. Tang Fei. President, I support Mr. Kitson Yang's motion and Mr. Michael TIEN's amendment. As the motion says, there has been a shift in the habit where people pick up their fresh produce. There is supermarket, there's e-commerce, now we see vacant stalls at public market. There's little we can do. There's an irreversible change in preferences across generations, so we cannot be stuck in a rut. We need new ideas for public markets. We also have to brace ourselves for the fact that certain things will simply have to go over time. Markets are more than just about buying and selling. Now, there was a local movie starring Miriam Yeung and Eason Chen. The movie is about a new territories market. At that market, there is warmth, there are neighborly ties, it's a place of collective memories. So you have local culture and nostalgia. And that may be the soul of public markets. And that's exactly the Hong Kong flavor for visitors from the mainland. Public markets elsewhere are not just about places you do your shopping. In Thailand, there's a railway market. It's a unique attraction. Mr. Yang also cited the central market in Budapest in Hungary. It's also a traditional market. In the Xinjiang Autonomous Region in Urumqi, there's a huge bazaar. Bazaars are found in major Islamic cities. Those bazaars come with a strong Islamic flavor. You see cultures and features of ethnic minorities. It's a must-visit attraction for tourists. Those are success stories, and they hold a lesson for us, and that is, if we are to revitalize our markets, we want to bring back visitors, we should not be competing with supermarkets and e-commerce head-on. Other members have brought up rice with two sides. We have to look elsewhere. We should combine shopping and culture. We need a better management model. And more, we need local culture as part of our market. We need more than just young people engaging in cultural and creative activities in market. Mainland visitors here, not for new stuff. They are looking for what they consider to be Hong Kong flavors. Mainland visitors go to Lan Kwai Fong not for the alcohol. They go there to take pictures. They want the Hong Kong vibes. Not for more exciting bars upstairs. They want places with a strong Hong Kong vibe. So, here, for our public market, can we have more elements of districts? Going to a different market in Hong Kong gives you a different experience. Can we incorporate our local features into our redeveloped markets? Can we make public markets a place for shopping, food and beverage, and also cultural experience of our local culture? And can we tell tourists about our market? If in that case, we may have to wonder whether the public market should fall under just the FEHD or also under the CSTB. I so submit. Mr. Ronak Chen. Now, the rising vacancy rates of public markets are nothing new. Back in 2003 and 2008, the Audit Commission performed audits on our public market. They found, even back then, long-standing vacant stores. After that, the government took a number of measures to improve the operating environment and competitiveness of market. Still, things did not look up. Now, 91% in 2014, and it was only 82% last year. I thank Mr. TIEN for his motion, so that the government is invited to look again at the strategy for public markets. Over the past decade, our retail landscape has been upended. There are supermarkets offering discount goods, and then there were retail chains offering frozen meat and fresh produce. The local landscape has been transformed. Those stores have street-side stores. They offer variety at affordable prices, so people shop at those places instead. Now, with public market, we have small stores. Those are small operations, and prices are not necessarily cheaper than street-side stores. And that means people have less of a reason to visit public markets. And then we also have e-commerce, online shopping, and also people heading north to do their groceries. Market facilities are also dilapidated, and the management is poor. I've also read about what happened in newspapers. We read about the story that at the To Kwa Wan market, the escalator was broken, but that has been left in disrepair for 6 months. Seniors wanted to visit there, but the broken escalator barred seniors from visiting there. So the stalls couldn't keep up, and they just surrendered their tenancies. Now, there are 4 markets with occupancy rate less than 50%. You have one in Kwun Tong, one in Quarry Bay, you have one in Yunnan, another one in Hong Shou Kiu. Now, with the exception of Yi On Street market, that has already marked for primary healthcare facilities. For the other 3 markets, I see no plan for redevelop them or convert them, and that's wasting public resources. Now, for redeveloping market, things are moving slowly. Mong Kok market took 10 years. It took 10 years before the URA took over. Now, and as for the Sai Ying Pun market and Center Street market, and also for the Kwun Chou market, the district councils were consulted back in 2021 and 2023. Still, no timetable is available yet. Any planning bottlenecks should be raised, and then we can look at ways to tear down the hurdles to speed things up. To keep those markets running, we have to rethink the space and plant layout. So can we have new approaches? Can we have different sections? You can have stalls, traditional stalls in part of the market. And then for the rest of the market, let's turn them into public amenities, such as elderly activity centers or offices for district councillors or care team members or recycling spots. Let's make the most of markets so that they serve a social function, and also make those places serve the local residents. Tenancy agreements are usually 3 years for long-standing vacant stores. They are in the more remote corners in the market. The market changes. New tenants will be hard-pressed to make sure they have a profit, and when that's the case, they will not want to take out a tenancy. So can we have shorter tenancies for the first couple of tenancies, maybe 9 or 10 months, and then starting from the 3rd tenancy, we do a longer tenure, maybe 3 years. With a lower risk, we may have a better chance of attracting entrepreneurs to take out tenancies at market. We should also relax the cap so that existing tenants can scale up, they can offer a larger variety of goods, and they become more competitiveness. This may lead to higher administrative costs, but that's better than leaving the stalls vacant. The government should also consider the demographics and environment of each district and rethink market. Let's have a review of the role played by market. We should make sure markets cope with the latest market development and strike a balance between community needs and public resources. As so submitted, support the motion and the amendment. Mr. Oren Call. I thank Mr. TIEN for moving his motion. You get a taste of each city when you visit the public markets there. That's why I do exactly that. I visit those public markets whenever I visit a city elsewhere. Public markets are where collective memories can be found. Markets are also where the grassrooters make a living. Our markets bear testament to our evolving history. At first, we had Western-style buildings. Now we have a more minimalist building style. And then we got municipal buildings to save space. Public markets are public spaces. They are unique in so many ways, and they are part of our cityscape. Let's look at Chunyuan Street in North Point. You have the trams going through the market, and that's one of the oldest open-air markets. And you can also trace the history back to Graham Street from the 19th century. And this is where Hong Kong is set apart from other international cities, given Hong Kong's history. To redevelop markets, we should make sure markets actually provide a service. I visited Sheki Mei Market. The stall tenants there told me there was ventilation issues, then there were air conditioning issues. But it was a complex problem. The ventilation issues remained unresolved. And there was also a problem, it was a long-standing problem with the outsourcing of operation. So before overhauling our public market, we have to have a clear picture of the long-standing challenges confronting our market. People from different generations have different preferences. So we need a new approach with the way markets work. We need diversity in the way public markets work. When you have a market for seniors, we need the basic essentials, such as fish stalls, vegetable stalls, etc. We can also consider delivery of produce. We can also have shoemaker, shoe repair workers, and other services, so that people can access one-stop services at markets. Now, for younger people, we can have handicraft workshops and cultural and creative space, so that people can spend time in public markets over weekends. Now, we have success stories where you have snack shops and also florists' places in public markets. So let's bring in new activities so that public markets become places people want to visit. Lam University did a survey. They looked at the habits of seniors for those aged over 70. Every week, they visit markets 4.2 times, and that's way above the territory-wide average at 2.8 visits. So, public markets should focus on being seen elderly friendly, and we should be offering basic necessities of living and also provide the support people need. Let's look at Yunchao Street Market. They have smart payment systems, and at the Canal Street Market, you can see freezing, you can see advanced cold storage, and also traditional chicken coops. So you have modernity alongside tradition, and here you will need different elements coming together to keep those markets running. Foreign visitors visit our local markets. They visit those street-side eateries known as Tai Pai Dong, and that shows public markets are already part of our city. But we have to have a purpose in redeveloping our public market, and that is focusing on the essential services. We need higher income for store tenants so that we will see greater vitality, and then the public market can play a bigger role and showcase our city. So let's focus on public service in mind as we reshape our market. We should be safeguarding our collective memories, supporting people's livelihood, and looking after people's day-to-day needs so that we can keep having new ideas and having new models in operation. Thank you.
Mr. Stephen Ho. Thank you, President. I speak in support of Mr. Yang's motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. This motion entails an historical question. Did we build public markets to develop our economy? No. Back in the days, the former urban council need to relocate the hawkers at street. That's why they create an indoor public markets. For these hawkers, they give them licenses to operate there. So we see a number of public markets in a few street blocks in Hong Kong. However, in new territories, there is only one public market in the large districts. In new public housing estates, we see one at each estate. So given evolving times, we see ever more complicated management issues. Mr. Chen Cheng-ying and Ms. Doreen Kong just now talked about this. An urban district is created because of demand, people's demand. However, if the public market is too remote, then that will not be successful. Third, our consumption patterns and habits are very much different nowadays. Ms. Doreen Kong talked about how we should make our public markets elderly friendly. Young people don't have this habit of going to the wet market. They have a different way of life. People aged below 40, regardless of their age, don't really know how to cook. That's why they don't go to the wet market or public market. The management model of public market has not changed over the past few decades. If we look at the laws, we see that stalls are put up for auction on an individual basis. So it's difficult for an enterprise to place a bid and consolidate the services and the commodities that they sell. I think that the FEHD adopts a rather humanistic approach in managing their stalls, because sometimes poultry and stalls offer pre-processed sausages. Previously, we allowed stalls to sell both live and pre-processed food. And sometimes we see vegetable stalls selling flowers. However, in public markets, the trade mix is already fixed. If we want to improve the business environment in public markets, we have to change our mindset. As I mentioned, not many people go to the market anymore. They choose a rice with two sides these days. It's easy for us to plan for public markets. The government now have one public market per 100,000 people. But I think that perhaps we should include, say, a cooked food market next to the wet markets in order to attract more footfall. As we can see, public markets with cooked food centers are very popular. Because the cooked food center operators can purchase groceries or produce from the wet market. I think that we should make reference to the mainland. Some of their wet markets provide cooking service. So when people have purchased their groceries, they can take them to the stalls to have their food cooked. Next to Mr. Kwok Wai Kan. Thank you, President. On behalf of the FTU, I speak in support of Mr. Yang Wing-kit's motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. Public markets used to be an essentials to the people. However, many of them are now very aged and old. Some of the drains are leaking. and some escalators need replacement. We have to work on the structures, the hardware, and facilities. In terms of software, I think that we should keep our management up to date. The economy is still lackluster. Grassroots people are suffering. They have to tighten their belt. That's why rice with two sides are becoming more and more popular. They are very cheap and they are with value for money. Public markets are faced with many challenges. It's true that not many people know how to cook these days. On top of that, many people choose to do grocery shopping on the mainland. Supermarkets of different scales are everywhere. Sometimes when we redevelop old districts, the residents had to move elsewhere. That's why the source of customers for public markets is lost. The intent of the market modernization program is good. They want to enhance customers' shopping experience and improve the environment there. The government said that they will set aside $2 billion to improve and refurbish the existing public markets in 10 years' time. The stall operators have to vacate their stalls. The first wet market, the Aberdeen wet market, was cordoned off for 1.5 years. $254 million were spent. However, upon its commissioning in 2023, the income of the stall operators has dropped. The footfall dropped. However, the rent increased, especially the air conditioning charges, which account for 50% of the rent. Because of the increasing cost and declining business, many tenants choose to leave the market. So this shows that upgrading the infrastructure will not necessarily attract more customers. Talcock Market tenants said that they'd rather give up on the subsidy or allowances under the market modernization program. They want to keep their stalls there instead. Many of them are against modernization of markets. Tenants who were intending to leave support the modernization program because they want to get the allowance from the government. This is against the policy intent of the program. Well, for public markets that are old and dilapidated, I think that we should implement a pilot scheme by renovating, say, part of the public markets in phases in order to minimize the impact caused to the tenants. I think that there should be a seamless transition for tenants. Say, for example, we should build a new public market first before asking the tenants at the old market to vacate. Or perhaps we should renovate just part of the market instead of asking all stall operators to leave. The government is now issuing too many fresh provision shop licenses. I think that this has dealt a blow to the public market. I think that the government should review the policy holistically. Mr. Benson, look. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Yan Wen-kit for moving the motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. Public markets are managed by FVHD, the HA, the Housing Authority, and Think REIT. For public markets managed by FVHD, there are some 96 of them, with over 13,500 stalls. The occupancy rate is about 84%. About 23,000 stalls are vacant due to various reasons. People are now going grocery shoppings on the mainland. Shenzhen stalls are now trying to attract more Hong Kong customers. Since the end 2024, there is a market opened in Shenzhen tailored to the taste of Hong Kong people. Their management even come to Hong Kong to survey on the shopping habits of Hong Kong residents. Some people told me that the prices on the Shenzhen market is 2 or 3 times lower than that in Hong Kong. Many tenants in public markets said that they see a drop in footfall. And because of the increase in service frequency of cross-boundary coaches, residents in Tai Po and Sha Tin choose to shop on the mainland. The public markets under the Housing Authority has also seen a decrease in their footfall. The vacancy rate has grown from 7% in 2023 to 13.32% in 2025. I think that the greatest challenge faced by public market is not because of the location or design, but the prices of groceries or goods. Public markets in the North District, because they are very close to the boundary, are faced with huge pressure. The value for money of goods in Shenzhen is very competitive. For public markets that are far away from boundary, their business is not good either. I went to Tin Wan Market in the Southern District. The market was almost empty. For this, I have 3 suggestions for the government. First, at various panel meetings, I said that the government should keep the strategy for public markets up with times. We should make reference to the private shopping centers model by offering a low rent to tenants and adopt a profit-sharing approach. I think that the government should be more flexible in dealing with vacant stalls. For example, we should allow tenants to operate the long-standing vacant stalls in a pop-up manner. We should work with, say, community care teams of district councillors to turn these vacant stalls into public service spots to increase the footfall at the market. Second, as the management model of public markets is rather dated, I think that the government should be more innovative. They can consider asking public enterprises to run some of the public markets. Perhaps we can make use of a public-private partnership model to allow private enterprises to build and run some of our markets. Third, Director Sha Baolong said that we should implement this idea of tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. Our cooked food centers and public markets have a lot of popular stores and many tourists come to try out our local delicacies. Cooked food centers are where residents go to and they attract tourists as well. However, the administration refuses to include cooked food centers in a lot of the public markets. So I think that the government should reconsider it. Thank you.
Mr. Chen Haofeng, when we need to treat an illness, we need to first find out the cause. So we need to find out the cause for the failure of public markets first in order to have targeted treatment. I heard what Mr. Chen Haofeng said. what he said was quite valid. When you ask youngsters when they go to markets, it's probably never. My two sons don't go to the markets either, not even me, to be honest. Many of those who are retired would go to markets, and they are entitled to transport concessions, which is why they would buy groceries in one go. Some may even go other districts to buy groceries in the public markets in the other districts. With an aging population, we have now many people who are buying groceries in one go. So I think we should consolidate the markets so we have some of the major markets, and we can have those who are retired or elderly persons in general buy groceries at those major markets. With cooked food markets, we should try to convert them into just independent food stalls. Cooked food markets are quite popular. In fact, in Shatong market, we have less people going there, as well as Tin market. So can we make those into specialty markets in order to attract more people to visit those markets? That's my first point. Second, I heard many citizens say some markets are not very convenient. And some of the markets have 2 to 3 floors. They have shops on different floors. And when escalators fail, it's hard for people to get to the second or third floors. And the store operators are very dissatisfied with that. So I think in future, we need to have a horizontal market rather than a vertical market. It's just like with Sai Ying Pun market. It is a market that was awarded, but the layout is very inconvenient. If one has to get vegetables, they need to go on this floor and then they need to go up half a floor to get fish. Basically, one would have to go through the entire market to buy the groceries they want. We need to reconsider the layout of markets. We also need to help existing tenants transform by helping them go online. We have many good products being sold in markets, such as the food for hot pot, but the youngsters only buy things online these days. So can we help market tenants by trying to connect them to online services so that their products can be delivered to online shoppers, so that online shopping is also available from the market? This will be an innovative direction. If we don't help existing tenants transform, if we only modernize the markets, we can see that this may fail, just like the example we have with Aberdeen market. So we really need to review the operational mode of existing markets. Thank you, Mr. Chen Puilan. Thank you. Recently, we have seen the government actively promoting the MMP, but we have seen changes in consumption patterns. So we have seen a much lower utilization rate of public markets. We have many grassroots or celebrities alike who will visit markets, so markets are irreplaceable. We need to formulate a way forward for markets, lower the costs of existing tenants, and see how we can maximize the use of space to enhance interactions between markets and the people. Right now, the FEHD manages 96 public markets. We need to keep abreast with the times. we should not only upgrade the facilities, but we also need to upgrade the operational mode. We need to have a better mix of stalls, a more diversified mix, so that more options can be provided to citizens. We also need to review the layout of markets. For the ground level, we should have traditional fresh food and miscellaneous goods stalls. On the first floor, we should have a cooked food market to make it convenient for people to eat there. But then there should be different foods available. On the second floor or above, we can make it into community living rooms or social welfare facilities, since markets are often located in accessible locations. On the rooftop, we can have photo taking spots to attract visitors to visit the markets. I believe with such a layout, it will convert market from a plain market to a comprehensive living space. It will also enhance competitiveness of public markets and meet the expectations of the public. Some say rents of public markets should be lowered, but I think this is not a long-term solution. Market tenants face difficulties not only in the short term. It is a long-term change of consumption patterns. So there have to be more changes. I urge the government to look into different operational modes. For example, have lower rents and have a profit sharing arrangement and share a percentage of the profit with tenants and set another percentage for rent. That would allow for a more flexible approach. There should also be less restrictions to have different market stalls, just like what they did in Macau. We also need to keep abreast with the times by allowing contactless payment methods. It is said 2/3 of the consumers support diversity in payment methods. But right now, the installation rate of electronic payment methods in markets is not high. In fact, for some markets, the occupancy take-up rate is less than 10%. In Singapore, we have markets that have stalls that have electronic payment methods. They can get 300 Singaporean dollars in subsidy. So we can perhaps refer to the experience of Singapore. We have seen aging tenants, so we need to make sure there is proper turnover of tenants. We should have incentives for younger tenants so that we can ensure a healthy turnover of markets. I so submit speaking in support of Mr. Yan Wing-kit's original motion. Mr. Lemon Kwong. I speak in support of Mr. Yan Wing-kit's motion. Right now, we are in an online shopping generation. We have people just shopping online for food and other products. If we don't move forward with the times, we may be left behind. So I thank Mr. Yan Wing-kit for proposing the motion so that we can discuss this issue. The layout of markets should be considered comprehensively. We should not have separate plans for different markets. In fact, we should see lower occupancy rates for markets gradually. We have 6 markets in Yaoqing Mall, and 5 of them have a vacancy rate of 20%, and in Shamsherpur there are 4 markets. And for 2 of the markets, they have progressively declining vacancy rates. And in fact, for a particular market, there are already 90 stalls that are left vacant. Now, we have outside of these markets 3 markets in housing estates. I think there is the issue of poor resource allocation that is making it hard for markets to survive. If we have markets managed separately by the Housing Authority and the FEHD, it is not going to help because it will just be competition. There should be consolidated planning for the markets to enhance efficiency, and we can make use of the space of some of the markets for other facilities. We talked about how the markets are managed by FEHD and the Housing Authority separately, and they have different operational models. And the cost for maintenance and repairs, as well as other operational costs, are high. It can cost up to billions of dollars. So we have talked about different issues today. We have talked about in the amendments proposed that we should have e-payment methods in markets. I think the government should only take the role of controlling rent and have the markets operate more on their own. We should have new tenants charge the same rent as existing tenants because new tenants are charged market rent. We should have some incentives or concessions still for existing tenants. We can perhaps increase the rent of existing tenants gradually, and for new tenants we can charge them lower than market rent so as to provide some kind of incentive for them to operate in stores. We have many vacant stores in markets at the moment. They can become growth engines. They can become places for non-profit organizations to hold events. We have also the Build Startup program so that we can support startup entrepreneurs while injecting vitality into markets. We need to see how we can be innovative in the operations of public markets. We need to help public markets transform so that we can continue to move forward. I speak in support of the motion amendments. Dr. Johnny Ng.
I start by thanking Mr. Kitson Yang for moving this motion so that fellow members can discuss the strategy for developing public markets. Markets are where people pick up fresh produce and daily necessities. Markets are also where small operators make a livelihood. So this is a bread and butter issue for people. Markets are part of our daily lives. Markets serve a key social function. Our economy is still recovering, but then the cost of living is rising. People want affordable groceries. People want affordable necessities. And that's where markets come in. They are an important option. We are now seeing fewer public markets. Some markets have high vacancy rates. Some of these markets see a low patronage rate. Those places are like deserted places. So we should be improving the operation model and management approach so that markets become more competitive and we are actually making proper use of public resources. Some people argue markets struggle because of a shift in people's spending pattern. People head north to do shopping. People buy groceries online and you cannot turn things around. I don't think that's the full story. Markets where people buy fresh produce and daily necessities, properly managed markets should have customers. So I do have some thoughts on getting more people to visit market. First, let's start from the basics. We need better management. Look at Singapore. We should learn from Singapore. There, public markets also play a key role in people's daily lives. Those places have hawker centers, and Singapore takes hawker centers seriously. Affordable groceries are provided there. There are jobs and there's social space for events. Starting from 2013, the Singaporean government completed the renovation of their hawker centers, and by 2027, they will build 20 new hawker centers. And there are also a new management model with social enterprises. The Singaporean government invited tenders. There are stalls with cheaper rent. Offers with cheaper rent will be given priority, and there are also steps taken to encourage new operators. That's to inject vitality into hawker centers. So that led to more patronage. Customer satisfaction stood at around 90%. Let's also adjust market rents in light of social conditions. We should review the mechanism where market rents are set. We should look into the facts, find out what's leaving tenants struggling, and adjust the rents. Let's consider giving support so that we help tenants cope with the challenge. In Singapore, with the social enterprise model in place for hawker centers, they realized the risk of rising rents. So in 2018, Singapore did a review. They removed unduly harsh tenancy clauses. Singapore also prevented those social enterprises from massively increasing the rent, and when struggling tenants ask for it, they get rate concessions. The FEHD announced open auction for 577 tenants across 45 public markets. In Chiu Market has many such stores, and they have a high vacancy rate as well. We should lower the upset price for stores, and we should review the trade mix-up markets so that we bring back vitality. Let's also make greater use of technology to encourage people to shop at market. We should make smart technologies part of public markets. Let's encourage market operators to use more technology. Vibrancy of public markets depends on many factors, location and trade mix being some of them. Let's all work together to make markets a success. I support the motion and amendment and so submit. Ms. Nixie Lam. I support Mr. Kitten Yang's motion. Public markets are not just where you do your groceries. Markets are also where people's memories are. Spending patterns have shifted. Now you see lower patronage and aging facilities at markets. That's why any review of public markets should be more than just about renovation. We need a complete rethink of what we want public markets to do in the future. I used to be a district councillor of Tsuen Wan. I worked on quite a number of market overhaul projects, Shem Market, Road Market, and also another cooked food market. I followed up on those cases, and I learned that markets are not just about hardware replacement. You have to bear in mind it's about people's livelihood. You need coordination to get work done. You may have renovated the hardware, but then resettlement and compensation become a problem, and then the work stalled, and then fewer people visit those markets. So we need to plan holistically. We have to fix the management of markets. We have to rethink everything. The role of a public market varies from one district to the next. When I visited France, I went to the local public market and then I learned to prepare French cuisine. So for our district with more tourists, can we make public markets in those districts places for tourists? And then the government should plan accordingly and improve our market. Now we can have social agreements. Let's bring in different groups to run markets or run parts of markets. Let's set clear performance indicators. Let's have more flexible management models. And that can make sure markets meet local needs. That way we won't have monotonous markets. We will have special markets. Now there are succession problems with market operators. So let's find ways to get young people to become operators. Let's help young people see the way forward for public markets. For young people, let's have trial tendencies. Let's have rent concessions for young people. Let's help these young people build confidence and build up their networks. For long-standing vacant stores, let's do pop-up stores. Let students' bodies try out their business models in those public markets so we can get more people to visit the market. And let's also bear in mind the impact on people from redevelopment. Compensation should not be just one-off cash compensation. We should be giving help to people with transitioning, and also let's do business matching so that operators don't lose their livelihood because of redevelopment. We need some long-standing cooperation partnership with the URA so that everything in redevelopment and policies are interconnected. And for long-standing vacant stores, let's rethink the uses so that the users meet the local needs. In recent years, the government has taken measures to bring in technology in public markets. Management matters more than technology. You need the systems and management to bring vibrancy to markets. Development strategies for public markets shouldn't just be a list of boxes to check. It's an opportunity for us to reshape markets. Let's find out the role for each and every market so that we can reshape our market. Let's turn public markets into a feature of each district that so submit and support the motion. Mrs. Regina Ip. I agree with other members. I also feel for the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department. We slammed the FEHD for not building public markets. We got complaints about Tinshui and Tongchong. The local residents there complained about the lack of public market, and then they ended up with monopolies of Link. And in Tongchong there is a market, but the groceries there are very costly. So then the FEHD built the Sunlight Market in Tongchong. Everyone had high expectations of the market. They were amazed by the new architecture style and the natural sunlight. But then it turned out to be a damp squib because there was no air conditioning and there was water seepage. It was great ventilation. The hopes for the Sunlight Market failed to live up to the expectations. And then you also have vacancy rates as a problem. In Shaoke-Wan, the vacancy rates have been high. Now we're trying to turn that site into private flats. Now for me, I visited the Center Street Market and the Sai Ying-Pun Market. The Center Street Market is very much run down. Few people visit there. Now, given that land is at a premium, we should be redeveloping the Center Street Market. I know the FVHD has plans to move the stalls from Center Street Market to the Siding Point Market. But the tenants there refuse to move. They're used to operating there. They think that moving them to somewhere upstairs will take away their business. The ground floor stores are usually doing fine. They sell vegetables, fruit. The Aberdeen market is doing well on the ground floor, but the higher you go, the worse the business gets. I know the FEHD put in a lot of work and committed vast amounts of money to the Aberdeen market. There is now air conditioning, and then the operators complain about higher prices and the air conditioning fees. There's a cooked food stall at the Aberdeen market. It's doing so. So for the FEHD, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. The FEHD used to be the urban authorities. It used to be part of the urban council when it was still there. The urban council used to be the sanitary board. Back then, they had to set up a body to run public markets because the people back then wanted to make sure the public had access to hygienic sanitary food. But we don't need the FEHD to do that today. Supermarkets, e-commerce, street-side stores offering fresh meat. The population is aging. They hesitate to visit stores upstairs. And then there are people heading north for shopping. So it's hard going to run public markets. No one is now solely relying on the FEHD for clean food. And I know the FEHD is not a business department. I asked the FEHD why not do loyalty point system for the Aberdeen market, but the FEHD is not a business department. That's why we see high vacancy rates across market. Now for culture and creative space in market, you can make that happen only with very low rent. At the Center Street Market, there are vacant stores. We should be making the space available for district councillors or care teams to set up offices, or you can free up the space for owners' corporations or meetings. Free up the land for the community instead of leaving the site idle. If you turn the space into youth, culture, and creative space, make sure you charge very low rent. So the FEHD should consider freeing up the land for district councillors, care teams, and the public. Dr. Sari Lee. I thank Mr. Kitson Yang for this motion. Now, we talk about markets in every term of the Legislative Council. I just heard the preliminary reply from the Secretary. We don't see much change over the years, but the Secretary has listed many tasks they completed. I have been following this issue for many years. There was a year we were at the Public Accounts Committee. In fact, the Audit Commission completes reports on the FEHD's markets every now and then. The officials in charge back then is now one of our Secretaries of Development. There are systemic issues that cannot be solved with straightforward fixes. There are legacy issues. Finding the way forward remains a challenge even for us. Many markets were built many years ago. Now, public markets were put in place to deal with unlicensed street-side hawkers. So those people were operating on their own, and many such people, of those people were seniors. And that's why proposals to raise rents meet with so much opposition, because we support those hawkers. And now stores are struggling. Part of the reason is that they fail to keep up with the changing times in the way they do business. And just like what we talked about last time, we should avoid one-size-fits-all approaches. Let's look at the existing markets. Do we still need public markets to serve certain functions? There are street-level stores. People love to visit those stores. Back then, public markets were expected to provide fresh produce. But then so many years later, do we still need the same function? So therein may lie an opportunity. Let's be bold. Let's revitalize the space. Now, of course, we should also address any objection. We can get private sector players involved, and let's get them to think about what they can do with the space. That may generate a new stream of revenue for the public coffers. I know the government is cash-strapped, and you will need a massive revitalization exercise to keep up with the times. Now, I am skeptical about the FEHD and how well they can run markets. I know they're not a business department. Private companies are more flexible than the FEHD. A massive investment does not necessarily mean better management or proper use of resources. We have to think about that. Every year, we spend more than $1 billion on maintaining markets. Even for new public markets with air conditioning, things are not great. So where do we go from here? For public markets, we should think about that. People need public markets, but do we just stick to the same old approach to deliver fresh produce for people? We should discuss different options.
Mr. Shankenpor, thank you, President. People now no longer like to purchase fresh groceries. They like to go shopping online and at the supermarkets. That's why the vacancy rate of public markets is high. Given the change in consumption patterns, I think that the government should review and reallocate public resources, reposition our public markets. I thank Mr. Yang Wing-kit for moving the motion and the other member for moving the amendment so that we can talk about the development strategy for public markets. As at the end of 2023, there were 73 public markets. The occupancy rate is about 73%. In the 446 markets in the Yeon Street, there in Korea Bay Market, the vacancy rate is 53%. There is diverse demand in different districts. Some public markets has the occupancy rate of 100%, for example, the Wanchai Market. So the government should plan for public markets according to the districts. Since 2018, the FEHD closed down 7 public markets with high vacancy rate. They have made available the land for other purposes. They build them into transitional housing and elderly service centers. The government should continue to monitor the usage rate. They should turn public markets with high vacancy rate into sports centers, healthcare centers, so on and so forth. For new development areas, we should develop long-term planning and set aside sites for public market. We should introduce smart design. We should ask the tenants to offer electronic payment methods for their customers. We should go for a cashless operation model. For members of the public, clean markets with low prices are very important. We should adopt a no-frills approach in designing the markets. If the management fees of public market is too high, then the tenants may try to pass on the operation cost to the customers. Eventually, the prices of the groceries of the market may be higher than nearby stores, driving customers away from them. Many markets open early and close early. They usually close before 6 p.m. This is not in line with workers or employees. And after people get off work, they have no place to go for shopping for fresh groceries. I think that we should extend the operating hours of market to 8 p.m. We should introduce mobile hawkers or store operating approach. We should allow online shop owners to operate stalls at public markets to meet the needs of both parents who work. Given the challenge posed by supermarkets, the public markets must review their own strategy to strengthen their competitiveness. Public markets offer fresh produce and groceries. They can offer flexible service. For example, they can marinate the food for customers. The markets must meet the needs of the people. We should integrate technology into the market so that it can give full play to its functions. Thank you. Mr. Ngam and Yu. President, public markets offer groceries with reasonable price. They have created many job opportunities for the people. Currently, there are about 74 public markets in Hong Kong. But as they are aging and given the competition from the supermarkets and online shops, the public markets are no longer as appealing. The vacancy rate is very high in these markets. I think that the government should review holistically the development strategy for public markets. As at 2023, there are about 10,000 stalls in markets supporting tens of thousands of families. Many public markets were built decades ago. Their ventilation and drainage facilities are old, and that affect the operation of tenants. That's why, given the emergence of supermarkets and online shopping, people are driven away from the public markets. Some organizations looked into the reasons for failure of some public markets. Some customers opt for supermarkets and online shopping, and they don't go back to public markets. The rent for new and old tenants is very different, and the management model is dated, so on and so forth. I think that the government should not make the same mistakes as they proceed with the market modernization program. When we implement the program, we should look into various factors. We should not just enhance the environment of the market. We have to look into and consider the actual needs of the tenants and the customers. The government said that they are going to redevelop the Ngau Tau Kok market, and they will put in place a provisional market. Tenants are worried about the rent, the arrangements, the air conditioning charges, and the transitional arrangements. They are worried if their business will continue to do well after the redevelopment project. I think that the government should adopt a people-oriented approach they should talk to the tenants. They should draft or formulate a transparent allowance scheme, and they should announce it as soon as possible. We have been talking about redeveloping our Talcott market for some 30 years. I went to this market since before I learned how to speak. The undersecretary here was at the same meeting with me on installing air conditioners at our Talcott market some 80 years ago. At that time, the tenants were consulted on, say, the stages of construction and how many air conditioners to be installed. The government then announced the lowering of the threshold of installing air conditioners. The government then issued questionnaires to tenants on the proposed arrangements. However, when the FVHD staff was about to issue questionnaires, the move was stopped because the government then rolled out the market modernization program. Now, some 10-odd years have passed. We now have a plan for redeveloping our Talcott market. The district council was consulted. However, we don't know how many stages of redevelopment there will be, and the government used to undertake that the project will be completed during my term as the electoral member, but I don't think that will happen. Tenants of Ngau Talcott market was very confused. Residents nearby didn't know when the refurbishment project will take place. I hope that the government will devise a more consistent policy. Thank you.
这位群议员
Mr. Tony Tse. Thank you, President, Deputy President. We have seen a persistently high vacancy rate in public markets. It is also hard on the tenants if they continue to rent public markets. We have seen changes in consumption patterns shifting from offline to online. But these problems were already there before the changes in consumption trends. The problems with the public markets. When I was a district councillor, I was already concerned about the situation about public markets. I have made some suggestions on the use of space. And I think a part of the problem lies with the design of markets. The ground floor stalls are the most profitable, usually with premises, but then for public markets, often their ground floor stalls will be enclosed in the building. They don't have any stalls facing up the streets, and they only have one entrance that is not even so conspicuous. The stalls are mostly the same. The corridors are narrow. They are often dirty. The markets are often not well ventilated. Of course, they are not going to be popular among youngsters. The government launched a market modernization program some years back to improve the hardware of markets, to improve the design essentially. But for different reasons, after the modernization of the markets did not see an improvement in traffic. It is probably because the construction programs are too long. After people stop coming, they just don't come back altogether. There may be other problems as well. It also has something to do with the government's rigid rental policy. The government does not have adequate coordination with existing tenants and operators have not done much in meeting consumer needs. So many of the modernized markets, having had much resources poured into them with modernization, had a high withdrawal rate. We have seen changes in consumption patterns. We have seen people shopping northbound. We have seen people shopping online. We have also seen people buying different things. In fact, with people buying this rice now, we can see that there is a change in consumption patterns, in food even. So we have many stores that are left vacant. Thus, rents face pressure to be lowered. It is said that there would be new public markets in new territories north, and some councillors already asked if there was adequate demand for such markets, and we need to make sure the products available in these markets need to match the current needs of the public. We should not stay within our existing operational model. So there are problems with both the hardware and software of markets. The government seems not to have an adequate understanding of the operations of markets. We need the government to have a better understanding of the operations of markets so that the government can be a facilitator, so that the tenants of markets can actually meet consumers' needs. Otherwise, no matter how modernized the markets are, people will not visit the markets and the tenants will not do well. I urge the government to do more. I support the original motion. As for the amendments, part of the amendments proposed by Ms. Hon Michael TIEN, I have reservations. I so submit. Mr. Andrew Lam, I first thank Mr. Yang for proposing a motion and the amendments proposed. I used to love going to public markets, but I today will not speak from a personal perspective. I want to go from a more practical perspective. When it comes to a new development area, once the timing is right, then the government will provide facilities. We need to make sure there are facilities available for the use of residents who have moved into these new development areas. We need to consider the demand and positioning of markets first. According to an Audit Commission's report, there has been increasing vacancy rate of markets, and as many members said, we have plans for many markets to close. I think we have all observed that there is indeed less appeal of markets to the public. We have seen the government launch the market modernization program. It first started with a pilot scheme, but it wasn't quite effective. It didn't really help the stores. Stores actually performed worse, at least for some of them. And for those that have not been modernized or private markets, they are actually doing quite well. We have seen changes in consumption patterns. We have people shopping online. We have people shopping in the north. Now, with the way forward for public markets, it is still unclear, and we still see an increasing vacancy rate. We have seen the government spend $2.3 billion in Tin Shui Wai and Kutong North to have 2 new public markets. Public markets are to provide fresh provisions and daily living goods to the public. the government should not aim to provide a better business environment for market tenants only. If there are adequate options for residents in the neighborhood, why do we need markets? In fact, Tin Shui Wai Market has 150 stalls and it is of a size of 20,000 square meters. And each year it would cost $37 million to maintain. And for the Kutong North Market, the construction cost is $90 billion and the maintenance cost is around $40 million. So we can see right now the utilization rates are 14% and 10% respectively. And the per meter construction cost is $5 million and $10 million. And we have right now each year it would cost per square meter at least, well, per day $130 or over $100 in general to maintain. So we really need to review the vision of the government, whether we are going to have markets for the benefit of citizens or are we going to convert markets into commercial centers to attract visitors or other groups of people. In that case, it should be handled by other departments. We should not be devising promotional strategies specifically for markets. If we have to help them win the competition, it's not exactly right. We need to have a comprehensive review of market policies. I'm not criticizing for the sake of criticizing things. We just need to review our vision. That's what I'm thinking. Thank you. Ms. Judy Chen. I would like to thank Mr. Yan Wing-Kit for proposing the original motion. As said in the original motion, we have now different avenues of shopping fresh provisions. We have supermarkets, we have private markets, we have some chain fresh provision stores. We have even some people shopping online so that they don't have to carry the groceries. I, at the moment, agree with what the Undersecretary said. The public markets are one of the channels for citizens to shop groceries. There has not been any change in the positioning of public markets so far. Public markets offer food or groceries in general at affordable prices. We do not see a change in positioning, but we can still do something about the different things about markets. It's just as Mrs. Regina Ip said. Every time I visited a market with her, we would discuss some issues with public markets. We do note many fresh provisions stores in people's lives are so popular with citizens because they are ground floor stores. But public markets are often multi-floor. And it has really dampened people's incentive to shop there at the markets, such as what members talked about for the Aberdeen market. I actually visited the market often. You do see less people on the upper floors. And there are now more ground floor stalls, and the prices are getting cheaper. for the Aberdeen market. The design of each floor would be essentially a long corridor. And it's the same for every floor. If you expect one to go to the upper floors and then travel through a long corridor front to and from, it is unrealistic. And for the Center Street market, we recently visited the market. As some members said, it is a market with a relatively high vacancy rate. There should be rationalization of markets, and I understand that there are plans for the tenants of Center Street Market to be relocated to Sai Ying Pun Market. But the problem is the Center Street Market is close to Queen's Road West. But if they're relocated to Sai Ying Pun Market, they will be close to the 3rd Street or High Street. So with Sai Ying Pun Market, one has to go up 3 levels essentially. And Center Street Market has cooked food stalls. Sai Ying Pun Market has none. I'm sure you can imagine after relocation, the tenants will suffer. With the consolidation of markets, I think we have to consider how we can use markets for multiple services. Maybe we can have more social welfare facilities or housing department offices to provide services to citizens. We can also have district councillors or care teams set up points there. We have in Western District many single block buildings. We can perhaps have spaces for OCs to have meetings. We can also have self-study rooms set up maybe, so that we can make good use of the space of public markets. I urge the government to be innovative. I so submit, speaking in support of the motion.
Ms. Connie Lam. Thank you, Madam Deputy. I support Mr. Kitson-Yang's motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. People pick up fresh produce at public markets. That's also a place for people to get together, to mingle with one another. But then people's spending patterns have changed. Fewer people visit markets now. Vacancy rates are rising, and that warrants a review of public markets. Take the cycle market. We have a high vacancy rate. More than a third of the stalls are now vacant. No air conditioning, no lift. And now people head north to do their groceries. Things are cheaper in the mainland, after all. And that makes local markets even less attractive. Given these changes, the government needs to reposition markets to get out of this bind. Now, I propose new elements for public markets. Markets should not be just about doing groceries. Instead, public markets should offer one-stop services. Now take the Kudong North market. There is greenery, there are car parks, there is space for people to walk their dogs, and there's also hydroponics. So that should be a more competitive market. Now you can also look at South Korea. There's a market where you have groceries and also traditional culture, and that place has the potential to become a tourist attraction. Modernizing markets also matters. Better hardware at public markets can improve the environment and also efficiency. We need more than hardware though. We can also take other measures. Let's have entertainment as well. We can do pop-up stores to make markets more attractive and competitive. What I have just said simply belongs to the category of icing on the cake. Let's get back to the basics. Nobody wants costly groceries. And if you can offer good things, even a remote location will not deter people from visiting a market. Last year, more than 1,000 people were prosecuted for bringing raw meat and eggs from the mainland to Hong Kong, and that's a massive increase from the year before. So you can see people are now used to buying things in the mainland. They get good stuff cheap in the mainland. Now, if we make it a requirement for store tenants to offer e-wallets or other contactless payments, we may think it makes life easier for shoppers, but the store tenants will have to pay service charges to the service operators. Now, if people offer contactless payment, we can give extra credit to those operators, but we should not make those contactless payments a condition for tenancy renewal. Now, we can also be more selective in choosing tenants. We can keep only the more competitive tenants, but let's also be realistic. Many markets have vacant stores. If we become even more restrictive in keeping tenants, we will worsen the situation. You will end up with markets with just a few stores, and that will make markets even less attractive. You want to keep markets going. You want more people to visit markets. I can see the importance of market competition, but to revitalize public markets, we have to strike a balance between efficiency and inclusion. We need different kinds of stores coexisting side by side in markets. That's how we can preserve the diversity and vibrancy of public markets. Your time is up. Please stop. Mr. Stanley Lee. This is a motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. I thank Mr. Kitson Yang for his motion so that we can have a focused discussion on public markets in Hong Kong. From 2025 to 26, our vacancy rate is 17% across public markets. The vacancy rate is higher for some markets than others, such as the Quarry Bay public market, the Tung Yik Street market in Yuen Long. The vacancy rates are 50 to 65%. What this shows us is the traditional operational model cannot cope with the new spending patterns of people. We need true modernization to reshape markets. We have to work on hardware, operating models, and also technology. You cannot see the problem until you see the contrast with other players. People head north, people visit private markets, and then they see the contrast between those markets and our public markets. We want modern markets, so we will need the right ancillary facilities. I went on a visit to the cyclone market. Government officials joined me. Cyclone market is one of those markets without air conditioning. People prefer places with air conditioning, especially during the summer. So we have to move faster with air conditioning. Air conditioning is just a basic feature that a place is supposed to have. And we can also reverse the negative public perception of public markets being dirty places. And let's also have specialty food and beverage facilities in public markets. Even a furniture chain in Hong Kong comes with a snack bar. People can pick up snacks at the furniture chain. In the mainland, large supermarkets also come with specialty snacks. People visit those places simply for the snacks. So we can take a page out of that playbook. Now we can offer signature snacks from Hong Kong in public markets such as fish balls and siu mai. And let's also have public markets team up with cooked food markets. People can buy the seafood, and the seafood is prepared and cooked on the spot. That can enrich people's experience, and that can generate extra revenue. I myself visit wet markets every now and then. When I bring my children along, I wonder if we can have parent and child zones, whether there's a space for parents to drop off their children for the time being while the parent does the grocery. Can we have a zone in public markets? Let the children read a book or let them play with toys so that the parents can be freed up to do the groceries. If we can achieve that, we can bring more family customers. What we need is new elements to draw people to market. We also need technology. Technology is hardly a novelty these days. Can we have screens showing the prices of groceries in real time? We bring everything together, we will be able to make visiting a market a better experience. Markets should be more than just a place for doing groceries. It should be a place for entertainment. So we can create specialty markets in the future. Public markets are a key part of our city. We should apply new thinking to drive innovation. That way, public markets can stay vibrant in changing times and better serve people's needs. I so submit.
Dr. Lo Wai Kwok. Madam Deputy, I thank Mr. Hon Michael for moving the motion and Mr. Michael TIEN for moving the amendment. Madam Deputy, I think that I visit the public markets the most among our electrical members. Other colleagues call me Master Chef. Since I was young, I liked going to public markets because I was poor back then and I learned to cook at a very young age. I have a passion for public markets. Given the change in consumption patterns among people and more of them going north to shop, public market is no longer as competitive. However, people still go to the public market to purchase fresh produce. I think that we should make our local market more competitive. I agree with the original motion. I think that the government should review the development strategy for public markets, optimize management and operation models, upgrade facilities and enhance competitiveness, make good use of idle public markets and vacant stalls. In 2018, the government set aside $2 billion to implement the market modernization program to enhance the sanitation of the public markets. In 2021, 8th of September, I put in a written question asking the administration to review the modernization of public markets, the progress of the works, and look into the potential of different public markets. We should formulate a timetable for modernizing different public markets to make sure that the program can be completed in 10 years' time. Taipo market is a very successful market. I share my recipes online all the time, and the groceries actually come from Tai Po Market. It was commissioned in 2024. The cost was $245 million. The design of the market is rather good. On the ground floor and the first floor, there were about 160 stalls. At the cooked food centers, there are 40 stalls. On the second floor, from 3rd to 7th floor, there are government offices and public libraries, along with the sports centers. The cooked food center on the second floor, it was very successful. Some Tai Pai Tongs have become very popular. There is Shanghainese noodles, beef entrails, so on and so forth. I think that if there are users of Xiaohongshu who promote the cooked food center, it will become a photo-taking spot. Another reason for the success of Tai Po Market is because there is enough parking spaces. The basement car park is allocated for public use, and some are for government vehicles. During weekend, many middle-class families drive to the public markets to purchase groceries. If there are not enough parking spaces, then many of them will be discouraged to go there. I don't think that we have to be too worried about people going north to shop. We have, say, abundant fisheries resources. People who like to cook seafood have many options at local markets. So I think that the local markets have their own appeal. However, as the government is improving the facilities, they should enhance promotion and publicity to enhance their competitiveness. Madam Deputy, Mr. Michael TIEN amendment said that we should require public market tenants to provide 2 types of contactless payment methods as a condition of lease. Although I support the promotion of electronic payment methods, I don't think that we should make it mandatory for tenants because that would increase their operational cost. Mr. Michael TIEN also said that stalls operating in satisfactory condition can have their lease renewed. I don't agree with that, so I have reservations about his amendments. I so submit. Mr. Tan Capu. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Earlier on, I moved an amendment to this motion. However, I withdrew it because of the schedule of the council meeting. Given the changing in consumption patterns, we think that we should review the development strategy for public markets. I hope that there will be new elements in the markets, but we should not raise the rent substantially for tenants. Some people may think that we should outsource or privatize the public markets. However, in my times working at the New Territories and Kowloon, I saw that there are many flaws in markets operated by contractors or private sectors. In my original amendment, I said that this council also urges the government to prudently assess the impact of outsourcing the operation of public markets to contractors so as to prevent monopoly and avoid price increases in livelihood commodities. What does that mean? If we allow contractors to come into play, then they will sublease the stalls to tenants and they will charge fees as a middleman, and that will make the rent more expensive. These contractors operate stalls selling fresh produce themselves, usually. They may be selling pork. They will target fresh produce with high profits. For those that are more difficult to operate, say, stall selling beef, they will outsource it. Some stall tenants told me that with contractors, they have more difficulty in operating. For example, they are not allowed to sit at their stalls. They may have to revamp their entire business model. They have to submit their business proposal to the contractors, and sometimes contractors force the tenants to leave. So we should prudently assess the impact of outsourcing the operation. Given the lackluster economy, it was discussed that perhaps auto-cock market would be one of the projects under the market modernization program. However, a trade union successfully collected some 113 questionnaires, and 80+ stall tenants said that they don't want the market to be modernized because they don't want to cease operation for some 1 to 2 years, just like what happens with the Aberdeen market. Because in Kwun Tong, there are many retailers. Second, after the refurbishment, the government may introduce contractors to operate the public markets, and the tenants don't want that. So given our weak retail conditions, the tenants would rather not modernize their markets. I think that perhaps instead we should install air conditioners in phases. The government has dedicated so much resources into refurbishing the Aberdeen market. It seems that the tenants are still not happy about it. The business of the stalls dropped. That's why I think that the government should be more prudent in modernizing their market, because this will increase the prices. Mr. Chow Man Kwong, thank you. There are 74 public markets managed by FEHD, 33 managed by the HA directly or indirectly. Now, in terms of occupancy rate, there are 12,000 stalls under public markets operated by FEHD. 84% are occupied. For those under HA, 83%. I thank and support the motion moved by Mr. Yang Wing-kit. Both public markets and shopping centers have to transform and upgrade. So I'd like to give my suggestions on the markets operated by FEHD and the HA so that public markets can serve the needs of the people. First, regarding the public markets under the Housing Authority, I think that we should allow tenants to change the types of commodities that they sell to meet the demand of the people. There are many different strange requirements of the HA. Say, some fresh provision stalls are only allowed to sell either vegetables or tofu or bean curd or bean sprouts. Can the tenants make a living actually by just selling tofu? For fresh meat, stalls selling that are not able to sell dry food, I think that we should be more flexible. So I think that the Housing Authority should make sure that there is diversity in the trade mix. However, if they are being too inflexible, then the vacancy rate will only go up, and this is not good for the Housing Authority or the tenants. So I think that they should be more flexible in, for example, allowing shops to sell vegetables, fruits, and bean sprouts together so that they have a higher chance of survival. Second, regarding public markets under FHD, in order to enhance the occupancy rate, we should be more innovative. I think that the FHD should learn from the well-being startup program offered by the Housing Authority to provide a pathway to entrepreneurship for young people. Last year, there are 811 stalls up for rent in, say, Java Road, Chunwan Wet Market. There are some 70 of them that are vacant. I don't visit the wet market as often as Dr. Low. However, I observed something very strange. The prices at public markets at HOS estates is lower than that in the markets managed by Link REIT. In order to lower the vacancy rate, we must roll out more measures. Perhaps we should adopt a profit-sharing approach for the tenants to increase the patronage of our markets. Third, we should make our markets more attractive, include more local characteristics there. Since 2018, the government set aside $2 billion to promote the market modernization program. However, only Aberdeen and Lai Wan market has been modernized. If we keep to the old ways, then we are going to drive our young people and elderly to the north. We should make reference to the practice of, say, shopping malls. We should allow tenants to offer services and organize arts and cultural activities, for example, so that when people visit public market, they can enjoy services and buy groceries at the same time. Thank you. Professor William Wong. Thank you, Madam Deputy. Public markets are essential to many people. Many markets are very crowded. However, some are vacant with high vacancy rate. So I think that, I support the motion moved by Mr. Yang In-kit. We are at a digital age, so I think that we should also digitalize our public markets. We should drive supply chain management by technology. We should allow tenants to deliver the groceries, to inject impetus into our public markets so that people can purchase and consume fresh produce there. Supply chain management comprises three parts: raw materials supply, second, processing, and third, delivery. Currently, public market only offered raw materials, that is groceries, fish, meat, vegetables, etc. I think that we should promote forward integration by providing processing services. That is, introducing the second tier of public supply chain management so that we can hand the processed food over to the delivery workers to have them sent to people's homes. To enhance the functions of public markets. This will benefit our community. The vacant stalls can be transformed into working stations for marinating and processing food. This will lower the vacancy rate. People in Hong Kong are very busy. Employees like to buy takeout to eat as their dinners. However, takeout food is very oily. If we allow housewives to work as part-timers at public markets to process the groceries at public market and have them handed over to delivery workers, then people have another choice for healthy eating. This will create many job opportunities. Women labor participation rate has always been low. One of the reasons is that they have to take care of their families, they have to send their children to school. They can only work a few hours a day when their kids are at school. If they can become, say, food processor at the public markets, this will enhance our women labor participation rate. By this, we can create job opportunities for women, and the delivery workers would have more orders to take. I think that we should create a POMA application dedicated for public markets. We should have a centralized platform integrating the 3 tiers of supply chain management so that people can make use of the grocery shopping application to purchase groceries from wet markets, so that logistics company can collect the goods and distribute them. The platforms can also offer processing service. If people like to have, say, cooked chicken with vegetables, the platform can cook the food for them and deliver it to people's homes. This will save people's time. If the public market can promote supply chain management, then that will benefit the people. I think that the government can allow the NGO to implement such measure. I so speak in support of the motion.
Your time is up, Mr. Vincent Ching. Thank you, Deputy President. I very much support Mr. Yang Wing-kit's original motion. When we see changes in society, especially after the pandemic, we have seen more people shop online. It is really easy to shop online. And according to the reply given to the estimates of 2025-2026, we have seen an increasing vacancy rate of public markets, including in Shamshui, Po, and Yaoqingmong, the 2 districts I serve. We have seen a progressively increasing vacancy rate. And for a market that I often visited, we have many stores that are left vacant. And Titan Market, we have many store operators leaving as well. It shows that there is change in demand for public markets, and the government should act accordingly. As for the facilities and markets, the government launched the market modernization program. I do support the direction taken. Say for Laiwan Market, I visited it after modernization many times, and I see the environment of the market being much better. It is also better for the operators as well. While we have an improvement in the hardware, we do not see a significant improvement in business. Laiwan Market has launched multiple events, but many of those living in Mayfu don't even know about these. I think we should think about how in future, even if we are to upgrade markets, why the business may suffer still. Many members talked about different points about markets. I would like to say this. We need to have a new positioning for markets with high vacancy rates. If we have markets that don't do much for the neighborhoods, they should be transformed. And we had another market that was supposed to be converted to an urban sports center, but we have not seen anything happen. So what is happening at the moment? How can we make sure to transform markets, to upgrade them to facilities that neighborhoods actually need? With cooked food markets, we have many foodies going to these markets, say the Kowloon City Market, Hong Kong Market, or the Mong Kok Cooked Food Market. They are attractive in some way, and people do go there. With the maturing of electronic payment methods, I note the Undersecretary has been promoting the use of electronic payment methods, but it seems that we are suffering a decline here. Why do people not use electronic payment methods? Are they facing difficulties? Should we provide some sort of incentives? These are what we have to think about. We need to review the positioning of public markets. They do face fierce competition from online retailers, but markets play a key role. Especially for grassroots, they shop there often. If we don't have markets altogether, it can be very difficult for them. For example, the Shanshipur market offers groceries at affordable prices, so there is a need for public markets. I just think there has to be a review of the positioning of public markets. Last week we talked about hawkers. I think we just need to tweak the policy like we want to for hawker policy to make some change. Thank you. Mr. Robert Lee. Public markets provide fresh provisions and other daily living goods for citizens. And in general, they provide groceries at affordable prices while allowing business for operators. According to statistics of the government, we have 74 markets managed by the government. We have seen various management issues of markets that are purportedly resolved by the Market Modernization Program. Under the MMP, Aberdeen Market and Lai Wan Market were refurbished and they have now reopened. I do understand that we have a need to keep abreast with the times with public market operations. I have some suggestions on this. The government should refer to international experience and introduce innovative practices to enhance the competitiveness of public markets. What's happening in Singapore is similar to what is happening in Hong Kong. Markets are a big part of people's lives. Not only do they sell fresh provisions, they also sell cooked food. To inject vitality into the operations of hawker centers in Singapore, they have an innovative model of operation. They have encouraged the taking up of electronic payment methods as well as providing delivery services. They have also tried actively to attract new blood to operate stores in their hawker centers. We should enhance competitiveness of public markets by holding festive activities or characteristic activities to increase traffic to markets and boost the economy in general. The government needs to pay attention to the trends in occupancy of markets and gauge the effectiveness of publicity initiatives. And they should monitor these closely. We have seen changes in consumption patterns. People now go to supermarkets instead of public markets. Often it is because supermarkets have a better shopping environment. I therefore urge the government to enhance awareness of market tenants on hygiene. Some incentives should be provided to tenants to keep good environmental hygiene. When there are hygiene issues, they should be tackled as soon as possible. There should be better waste management. There should be comprehensive processes for recycling and waste disposal. There should also be incentives for market tenants to take up electronic payment methods so that it can make payment more convenient for citizens. It can also facilitate digitalization of markets. The government should also actively take forward the MMP and try to get a better understanding of the operations of the markets in different districts so that market tenants can provide a continuous supply of fresh foods and other goods for consumers while attracting new blood to join the operations of markets. Thank you, Mr. Xu Kafei. In recent years, we have observed that there are high vacancy rates in markets, and indeed market operators do note that business is declining. But for citizens, have we stopped buying? It's not that either. We have only had people shopping elsewhere. People now shop online. Say for this rice. A member actually talked about how people don't really buy groceries these days to cook. They can just buy this rice. They can just eat it as a meal. And if we look at the operations of markets for ground floor stores, they are selling vegetables and fruits at great prices. And some vegetables that are left overnight, they are sold at $20. These are great prices. And we talked about this before for markets. How can people carry on their business if the prices are so cheap? But there's nothing much they can do, to be honest, because they used to buy their goods from wholesale markets. But now they don't even get these groceries. They actually get them directly from the sellers. So we have been thinking about what to do with markets. Is there nothing we can do? I don't think so. Say at Lambton, we have a market that has such good business. The market looks great. Everything is so organized, and as another member said, they have sold some great foods as well. So are markets hopeless? It doesn't seem to be the case. With markets, each store should be independent. They can't and won't think about the other store operators. But if you make the environment good, it can benefit the operators. The government has done some good work with modernization, such as Lai Wan Market has seen greater traffic. The Queen Street Cook Food Market has also seen increased traffic after refurbishment. If we want to have increased traffic, the environment must be improved. Honestly, the government is not about business. Even if we have government officers try to think about promoting business, they may not know how to do that. So we need to engage the private sector. We shouldn't leave store operators to their own devices because they will only think about their own profitability. I mean, we talked about adding air conditioning. We only have 26 markets have air conditioning. We have 20 markets that do not have air conditioning. You can see how slow it can be if we leave it to the devices of store operators. So people do not buy groceries in public markets. There is no air conditioning because, say, one elderly operator would think it's too cold. So they objected to the installation of air conditioning. So we really need to think about what to do. I thank Mr. Yan Wing-kit for proposing the original motion. We can also incorporate elements, some young creative elements, and some also talked about adding green elements to, say, have recycling booths in the markets. We've often talked about having mega events, but for markets, it's for groceries, it's for people to have meals. It is about livelihood of the people. There's nothing wrong with the livelihood of the people at the moment. So what can we do? That's what we have to think about. Excuse me.
Your time is up. Dr. So Chang-wing. Madam Deputy, people pick up fresh provisions primarily in public markets, but now we have supermarkets, we have online shopping. People also head north for shopping, so now people relies less on public markets. That points to a shift in the spending pattern. There's a diminishing role for public markets in meeting the community's needs. But we should not just let private markets decline given the social function they play. I thank Mr. Kitson Yang for moving the motion today. Vacancy rates remain high in public markets. In 13 public markets, as at the end of last year, the vacancy rates were over 30%, and the vacancy rate also varied for other markets. Some operators stuck to old ways of doing business. They failed to keep up with changes in supply and demand. At this rate, no improvement will happen. Public markets need to keep up with the changing times to maximize the effect of public money. Public markets need to be repurposed into a space serving multiple social purposes. They should be more than just places where people do their groceries. Let's look at overseas experience. The best elements to add to public markets are food and beverage businesses and also cultural and creative activities. We can also bring in social enterprises. Each district should add elements based on their local conditions. The success of reshaping markets depends on reshaping the market in line with local conditions. The management model needs to keep up with the needs. Government-driven innovation falls short because government departments lack the business acumen of the private sector. In Singapore, markets are outsourced to social enterprises. They do public tendering. They engage experienced management teams to run the market on a day-to-day basis. The Singaporean government focuses instead on policy matters and regulation. We should also set up a public market management board. Let's pool the wisdom of the private sector and consumers. And let's get district councils and local stakeholders involved so that the management is more down to earth and in line with local needs. markets still play a primary role in delivering fresh produce, but the market demand is declining. We need specialty F&B, youth entrepreneurship space, and social enterprises for public markets. Idle stores should be turned into social kitchens, eco-education stations, or workshops of seniors. That way we revitalize the space and we maximize the social benefits. Let's also allow longer operating hours and allow more kinds of goods. Let's try extending the operating hours to the evening, and we should streamline the application procedures so that you keep the warmth of conventional public markets, and we also offer modern convenience. Part of the idle stalls of public markets should be turned into nighttime bazaars or weekend bazaars. Let's improve the market environment. Please stop. Mr. Perrigue. Thank you, President. I support Mr. Kitson-Yang's motion. Bread and butter issues should always be taken seriously. People needed public markets as a necessity at one point, but times have changed and we have to recognize the change and respond to the change. I used to visit public markets a lot. When I was as a student, I went to public markets a lot. I got off school, I went to market to pick up groceries and then I cooked. But I don't do that anymore. My wife shops online. The food is delivered. She can go straight to cooking. Our lifestyle has changed, and that leads to changes in the demand for public markets. But I used to like visits to the market because of the warmth in the public markets. There was the hawking, the pitching, there was interaction between people, there was warmth, and it was a special experience. So when I visit other places, I go to the local market. I want to get a sense of the local character, get a sense of the food, the prices, etc., and that's a great experience. Mr. Kitson-Yang's motion proposes incorporating new elements, improving management, and enhancing the operating environment. I support all that. We have to turn things around with public markets. That's no mean feat. Can we think of some successful public markets? We think of low prices, more choices, quality groceries. And based on other members' speeches, we can learn a few things. Dr. Loa Kwok brought up the typo market. There are many options. You get many options. There are many stores where you get to choose where to do your groceries, and the prices are low. So that's why that market is so successful. Another example cited by Mr. Peter Xu is the Lam Tin's market, and that's the Kai Tin Shopping Center market. That's managed by the Link. The FEHD is like a major landlord of its market. There's a modernization program to improve the hardware. But when it comes to management, little has changed. Now let's look at the success story with the Link. They have a membership scheme. They do loyalty points. They also have marketing. There are even transport support services. That's how you make a successful market. So you have to consider the market conditions, local characteristics, local demand. You cannot just take a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to bear in mind the special conditions of each district, and then you tailor your approach accordingly. Different markets play different roles. Take the Yuan Oak Road market. It specializes in cheap seafood. The Kowloon City market does not offer cheap food. Instead, that market offers quality food. So that's their niche. So we have to get the niche right with different markets, and then the store tenants can work accordingly. Now we have the accredited food scheme, fish farm schemes. The AFCD is trying to create local brands for fisheries, etc. If we want to transform our markets, let's bring in quality local agricultural and fisheries products. Let's offer concessionary rents. Let's allow people to pick up the seafood, and then the food is prepared and cooked on the spot, and turn that into a tourist attraction. I so submit. Mr. Michael Locke. President, I support Mr. Kitson-Yang's motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. It takes more than just air conditioners to make a modern market. I listened to the speeches of many members, and that got me thinking. Why run public markets? We now talk about a capable government and an efficient market. You have market economy at a higher level, but at the more practical level, you have public markets. Then you wonder, what is the role of the government in a market economy? Back in the 1970s, public markets were about managing hawkers. So public markets back then were about municipal services and hygiene. We wanted to move the hawkers into public markets. That's why in the 1970s and 80s, there was a building spree. Many public markets were built. Back then, it was about small-scale operations. Each store was small, 1 square meter in area, so roughly 10 square feet. You can just fit in one person, and that's it. Hawkers moved into markets back then. They paid concessionary rent, and that operation has gone on for some stores. But is this operation still fit for purpose, for today's purpose? Public markets are there to serve a real purpose. I used to be a district councillor of Yunlong. I served Tinshui for many years. There was no public market in Tinshui. The markets there were all link markets. So we got calls all the time for a public market to smash the links monopoly. Now we have a public market. It's the Skylight market. And next to it, you had the Tianshao market. The government also committed $1.4 billion to build another market on the top side of the Chunma line. But we had mixed feelings about that. I was at the Finance Committee meeting that approved the $1.4 billion market. Now, if this market proved to be a flop, then we would be held accountable. So how do we make sure that market draws people? We need a convenient location. More importantly, we need a market that offers cheap groceries. We need more people to visit the market. You need economies of scale. The government needs to help. We need a direct selling model. Can we have an entire logistics chain for market? Can we have the parent company sell the stuff directly to the stores? Can we also consolidate the stores so that the stores can sell more goods, and then we can drive down the retail prices And then you have more competitive stores. We do have to adapt to the new era. Let's also consider entrusting the services to an outside party. Let's find marketing firms. We don't just pay those marketing firms a fixed fee. Instead, the fee should be based on the business revenue of the stores, so that those marketing firms can put in the thought. You can put F&B facilities, or you can have the well-being starter program kind of scheme in public markets. Just find a way to revitalize markets. That will draw people. With patrons, you will see cheap groceries. And that will allow grassroots to buy quality and cheap groceries. A reminder to members, according to the rules of procedure, we have to conclude this debate at 7 p.m. At around 6:30 p.m., I will invite the mover to speak on the amendments, and then we will deal with the rest of the procedures.
Mr. Chan Han-pen. President, I have to declare interest. One of my relatives work in a public market. Tenants operating a wet market stalls can support their families. But given the lackluster economy, all tenants are affected. So the room for survival for small tenants and public markets have everything to do with our economy. Many of them may make a living just by operating a stall. Second, we need a large patronage at public markets. If there are too many vacant stores, then people cannot buy everything they need in the place, and they would go somewhere else. Why is the public market declining? Why some markets used to flourish but not today? Since the government have taken over many licenses for live chicken, the public markets have seen lower patronage. Without people selling live chickens, there will be less footfall, and that's how the public markets came to its demise. That's why we must handle the vacant stalls issue. Second, people's way of living has changed. Prices at supermarkets used to be far higher than that at the public market. However, we have a different mode of a market outside of public markets. We have street-side stores. For public markets without air conditioner, people don't want to go there. That's an issue of convenience and people's lifestyle. Third, some markets are very narrow. It's not just about shopfront extension. Sometimes the design of the markets are flawed. Some stalls are just 1 times 1 square meter. Some people suggest outsourcing public markets because some of them are not doing well. However, when we engage these contractors to run the markets, those markets still don't see much business. So can we just solve the problem by outsourcing it? It seems that is not the case. The reason why some public markets are popular is because the occupancy rate is high. Take the Young Oak Road market as an example. They have over 10 fish and seafood stalls. is popular for its fresh produce, low prices, and high variety of commodities. That's why people like to go there. I hope that the government will turn vacant stalls into one with operation. Also, we should allow operators to cook the food for the people. A member suggests that we should only allow tenants to renew their lease if they perform well. Well, I think that this is a chicken and egg question. If the public market is too quiet, then the tenants will not be able to do well, and as a result, they may not be able to renew their licenses or leases. So I don't think that this approach proposed by the member is practical. That's why we're not going to support Mr. Michael Tien's amendment. I so submit. Mr. Lee Shan-kan. Thank you, President. I went to public market with my mother for grocery shopping all the time because I can pick the fish, meat, and vegetables that I liked. My mother had a habit of going to stalls that she is familiar with to purchase groceries. Sometimes my mother didn't like me to go along because sometimes I was in school uniform. She thought that the public market was too odorous and dirty, and that they may make my school uniform dirty as well. However, public market offer a diversified commodities, and I sometimes buy my sneakers, slippers, and clothes at those markets. The old public markets were like bazaars. When I left school, I went to public markets to buy snacks. They offer sometimes full shark fin soup and noodles. However, there are limited choices at the public market these days. Many members said that there are still options at the public markets. However, they are available at the online shopping platforms or the street-side stores instead. Many people purchase fresh groceries on the mainland. Hong Kong people care about our food. I believe that there is enough demand locally to support and sustain a public market. The question is how we revitalize them. Many public markets perform very well. Nearby FEHD markets, we see different stores. And people have, therefore, many choices. I thank Mr. Yang Wen-kit for moving the motion. We should offer groceries at different price level. People who like seafood can have their food cooked at the public markets or at the cooked food centers. This is feasible at Tai Pai Tong, but we no longer have many of them these days. If there are many vacant stalls at a wet market, we should turn it into childcare centers, for example, or allow elderly to meet them, play chess, chat, or allow children to be taken care of them while their mothers go grocery shopping at the wet market. Regarding Mr. Michael Tien's amendment, It's a great thing to have electronic payment methods. However, operators of these payment methods charge a middleman fee. For micro enterprises or tenants, they may not be able to afford such a fee. As we want to have more diversity in our commodities, we must be more inclusive. Second, Mr. Michael TIEN also proposed that those who perform well will be given the opportunity to renew their license. For those who underperform should not be given the opportunity to renew their license. Some stalls' tenants may perform well in a year but not in the next. I think that we should focus on increasing the types of commodities sold at the wet market. I so submit, Mr. Paul Chair. President, I believe that the market we're talking today is one that offers different types of groceries for the people. Some members suggest that we should organize arts and cultural activities there, but I think that they are referring to bazaars instead. Just now, Mrs. Regina Ip talked about the practice of the former urban council. Should the FHD be the marketer of public markets, or should we instead cater to people who just go to public markets to go for grocery shoppings? Young people have their own ways to buy groceries. Hong Kong TV Mall offer same-day delivery for groceries. Middle-class families also have their own ways to buy groceries. Should we actually reform our public markets just to increase patronage? We should, I think, work on what we have. I think that we have to look at our demand and our economy situation. Mr. Li Keqiang said that we have some $600 million earning just 1,000 yuan per month. Our conditions is not as bad, but it seems that in the coming future, we should work on lowering the prices at our public markets. To deal with the issues of vacancy, well, at Kutong North, we spent some $700 million to build a public market. Every year, we have to spend $42.4 million on operating the 100-odd stalls there. So each stall will incur a cost of $25,000 per year. How long will it take for us to recover the cost? On the 18th of October, there was a question in the council meeting on vacancy of public market. We all want to make progress. We all want to improve the environment at public markets by installing air conditioners, for example. However, given our economic situation, we should not work on upgrading or transformation. We should just focus on people's needs and the difficulties faced by them as well as the tenants. Just now, a member missed out on talking about Mr. Michael TIEN's amendments. We all want to go digital. However, we should not force the tenants to provide electronic payment methods. I think that the amendments moved by Mr. Michael TIEN is problematic. Apart from making progress, innovating our public markets, we should work on improving the vacant public markets with low patronage, like the one in Choi Hong, the Choi Yun market. We should offer low prices, we should be flexible in order to meet the latest trends. Thank you.
Mr. Yang Wing-kit, you may now speak on the amendment. President, I thank Mr. Michael TIEN for proposing amendments to have a different approach in improving market operations. Mr. Michael TIEN's amendments have two foci. One, market tenants are to provide two types of contactless payment methods as a condition of lease and lease renewal, and only stores operating in satisfactory condition are eligible for lease renewal. You need to have contactless payment methods installed, but so far the take-up rate is not that high. And with those that have a condition to install at least one contactless payment method, the take-up rate is much higher. So with Mr. Michael TIEN's amendment saying tenants are to provide two types of contactless payment methods as a condition of lease and lease renewal, to a certain extent it may work. I actually asked some market operators why they are not trying to put in some contactless payment methods. They said it's because there are high transaction costs and it's not possible for them to transfer that burden to consumers. And they will only be paid by the payment service providers a few days later. It does not help with their business turnover. So with Mr. Michael TIEN requiring tenants to provide two types of contactless payment methods, I have reservations. As for the second point made by Mr. Michael TIEN about stores operating in satisfactory condition, and only those stores will be eligible for lease renewal. But sometimes store operators, for different reasons, may have to stop operating stores for a few days, say if they're sick. So it may be too harsh if we only allow stores operating in satisfactory condition eligible for lease renewal. And there are some store operators who are very old and they do not have children that will take over the store. So they essentially, this is part of their lives and they want to continue to work. The government should look into this situation where these stores are not carried out daily, but there should be consideration of the different circumstances. Again, therefore, I have reservations for this amendment of Mr. Michael TIEN's to require stores operating in satisfactory condition so that they are eligible for lease renewal. But I do thank Mr. Michael TIEN for proposing amendment. Secretary for Environment and Ecology.
President, once again, I thank Mr. Kitson Yang for moving the motion on reviewing the development strategy for public markets. My thanks also go to Mr. Michael TIEN for his amendment and all members who have shared inspiring ideas on this motion. We began our engagement with key stakeholders, including eligible members, in September 2024. We learned from the experience of running the market modernization program so far. We reviewed the implementation of the program, we looked at the challenges and constraints, and examined the divergent views from the community. We did all that to explore room for adjustments or improvement. During this engagement, we got feedback, and we also know the comments made by members today. We will consider these points with care. Now, I respond specifically to the areas brought up by members in their speeches. First, the positioning of public markets. As I said in the opening speech, past discussions between the government and the electoral panels and subcommittees point to a community consensus that recognizes the social function of public markets, meaning public markets are the places where the public does their grocery. We need the markets to be neat and tidy, but the markets do not have to be unduly upmarket, and things are changing. Public markets need to keep pace with urban development. We note the comments made by all parties on the functions and positioning of the public markets as well as the way forward. Some proposed incorporating other elements into public markets, such as tourism elements. When we review the way forward for public markets, we will carefully consider the views from all sides. Now I turn to the management of public markets. Members have commented on tenancy agreements and tenancy management. On improving management, we proceed with the work and we keep an open mind to those ideas. We will review the approach in a timely way. The guiding principle is that public markets should remain public facilities where people can shop for fresh provisions. In making these decisions, we put the public's interest first. Some members proposed outsourcing the management and operation of public markets to private market players. So we can call this a new approach. We understand there are divergent views on this new approach from different stakeholders. Under this new approach, we can leverage the business acumen of private companies as well as their operational professional experience and expertise. That way, they can run markets in such a way that markets provide a better experience and better environment. But there are concerns about possible monopolies under this new approach. Those operators may eschew public auction or public tendering, and that may mean smaller operators may be barred from the market. The government does not have preconceived positions on whether to adopt this new approach. Other members argued for an arrangement. They argued for alternative tenancy arrangements. Now let's call this the new arrangement. So these arguments are centered on taking pressure off operators, lowering the rent, etc. Right now, we do not ask tenants to submit records of their business revenue. When we make lease renewal conditional upon their business revenue, we will have to specify the point of sale records before we can get our hands on the business records. And then only then we can tell whether the tenants breached the requirements by, say, taking cash instead of certain forms of payment. Other members also suggested charging rent based on the revenue of operators, but this may have a bearing on prices and there may be pushback from the public. We do not have any preconceived position on this new arrangement. And then there are members proposing changes to how we make decisions on tenancy renewal. So we should look at patronage levels. We should only allow tenancy renewal for competitive tenants. The FVHD now conducts open auction or lot drawing. This is to ensure fairness in allocating stalls to interested parties. Starting from 2020, all stalls allocated through open auction and lot drawing do not come with automatic renewal of tenancies. Once those tenancies expire, the FEHD looks at the actual conditions to determine whether the tenancies should be renewed. We consider the trade mix, whether changes are needed. We do not just look at the business volume or patronage level for specific stalls. When we assess the enhancement measures, we consider the impact on shoppers' experience and stall tenant operation. We also consult stakeholders in a timely manner on their acceptance of those proposals on contactless payment options. Now, for the new Skylight Market and Sunlight Market, as well as market overhauled under the Market Modernization Program, meaning the Aberdeen Market and the Laiwan Market, stall tenants there have to provide at least one contactless payment option as part of their tenancy agreement. We want to further encourage the use of contactless payment options for transactions. To that end, after hearing the case from a member, we agreed that for future markets in the future, new markets such as those in Tinshui, Waichangguan, and Kuzhong North, there will be a clause in the tenancy agreement requiring the provision of at least two contactless payment options by stall tenants. At least one such option needs to involve tapping a card for payment, while the other option has to be payment through e-wallet. And then the tenants can consider the commercial factors such as the cost in offering the specific choices. Now, making markets more competitive, people's spending patterns are shifting. There is demand for local shopping and local fresh provisions. Past figures show that the occupancy rates for certain markets have declined, but we do not see any dramatic or significant terminations of tenancies. To bring more patrons to market and to achieve greater vibrancy, the FEHD has been promoting public markets, and that includes festival promotions and publicity, and that includes festival decorations and thematic events. We create a stronger festive vibe in market. We can also bring in more patrons and stimulate consumption. So we do games, we do handicraft workshops. Those initiatives target younger people. We want them to visit markets. The FEHD also takes to the social media platforms such as the Keep Clean Ambassador tag as we publicize our work. And making good use of public markets, we need suitable sites for community facilities. That's why the FEHD has been looking at the usage levels of our public markets. We consider consolidating or closing public markets with a low usage rate. That's to free up land for other departments to put the site to better uses. As we said in the opening speech, starting from 2018, we have closed 7 public markets and we have freed up the site for other bureaus and departments to put to different uses, such as transitional housing to be run by NGOs and elderly care services. The FEHD will proceed with the preparations for and consultations on such work, and that includes the closure of the Center Street Market and the Eon Street Market. We want to free up the site for healthcare-related facilities. In conclusion, if particular bureaus, departments, or organizations, such as non-government organizations, take an interest in the site of these markets, we welcome proposals from them. Now, we also agree that we should make the most of our land resources to meet the community's various needs. As for the existing vacant stalls in public markets, we put up those vacant stalls for open auction. Now, for vacant stalls that have been left vacant for a while, we offer those stalls for auction at concessionary rates, and we also offer leftover stalls from open auction for application on the first come first served basis. We also consider merging stalls into larger ones, and we also consider changing the types of goods that stalls can sell. This is to better meet the market's need. We also welcome applications from young people and other people to take out tenancies in public markets. The FEHD keeps an open mind in considering how to let out the vacant stalls so that the market can serve their purpose. Now, building new markets and also the MMP. Some members argue we have to consider the cost effectiveness of building new markets and the MMP. Indeed, for these projects, they involve massive public resources. So in considering whether to build a new public market or pursue an MMP project, we will duly consider all the factors, and that includes project costs, recurrent expenditure, cost effectiveness, and also the demand for local services. That's to ensure proper use of public resources. The FEHD and the Works departments will continuously review the project cost and cost effectiveness. In project design and construction, we will seek ways to lower the costs and make sure we build no-frills markets. Just then, members brought up the market modernization program. They brought up the Ngao market. The FEHD has been in touch with the stakeholders about the MMP. We keep an open mind about the operation model, the design, the concept. We consult stakeholders. In implementing projects, we will carefully consider the comments from stakeholders and other relevant factors. That's to make sure we deliver projects in a cost-effective way and the project can meet local needs. I thank members for sharing their valuable views on this motion and the amendment so that we can approach the way forward for public markets from a wide range of perspectives. Now we will continue to work on the development strategies for public markets to meet public needs.
And I'll call upon Mr. Michael TIEN to move an amendment. President, I move my amendment. I propose a question to you that Mr. Michael Tien's amendment be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is not agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the amendment negatived. Mr. Yang Winkett, you have 14 seconds to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Thank you. I thank the 39 members who have spoken so that we can draw on collective wisdom to find a way forward for public markets. I hope that there will be a new direction for public markets. I now put the question to you that Mr. Yang Winkett's motion be passed. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by a majority of each of the two groups of members present. I declare the motion passed. And now adjourn the council. Now suspend the meeting until 9 a.m. tomorrow. Meeting adjourned.